April 19th, 2023 started like any ordinary spring day in Hudson, Ohio. The sun rose quietly over the suburban streets, children rushed to schools, and families prepared for their routines. But as the day moved forward, something felt wrong in one home on that silent street. Dr. Todd Allen Morgan, a respected assistant professor at Cleveland State University, had failed to pick up his daughter from school, something completely out of character for the devoted father of two. When police arrived for a welfare check, they could never have imagined the scene awaiting them.
Hi, I was wondering if I'd be able to request a wellness check on someone.
Okay, what's going on?
So my daughter was supposed to be picked up by her father today, and I got a call from the school that she was still at the school, so I ended up picking her up. They tried to contact him. I tried to call him a couple times and haven't received anything back.
And what's his name?
Todd Morgan.
Has he ever done anything like this?
No, I don't think he would forget his daughter from school, but we are going through some custody issues right now, which is why I find it to be a little bit more unusual.
When you call him, does it go straight to voicemail or does it ring?
It rings.
Inside his quiet home lay Todd Morgan, lifeless, brutally shot to death. The man who spent his life shaping young minds in the classroom had his own life stolen in the most unexpected way. As detectives stepped into the crime scene, they found bloody footprints leading away from his body. Footprints that would soon unravel a horrifying truth about trust, strangers, and the dangers lurking behind a simple online meeting.
Is he in the floor? Oh, shoot. You said you see blood? 110 radio. Come on. Go run back. Get EMS out here. Oh boy.
Today we're diving deep into the shocking murder of Dr. Todd Morgan, a crime that left an entire community reeling and a family destroyed. Who was the woman behind this gruesome act? Why did she do it? And how did investigators piece together the clues to catch her before she disappeared into the shadows? Dr. Todd Allen Morgan was the kind of professor students never forgot. At just 41 years old, he had built an impressive career as an assistant professor at Cleveland State University's Monte Ahuja College of Business. His areas of expertise included supply chain management and strategic operations, and his research had been published in multiple academic journals, earning him quiet respect in his field. But beyond the accolades and publications, Todd was remembered for his gentle teaching style, his open-door policy for students needing guidance, and his ability to make even the most complex topics understandable. Raised in Ohio, Todd valued education from an early age. Friends from his childhood described him as disciplined and driven, the type of student who always went the extra mile. Those qualities continued into adulthood, shaping him into a mentor who believed knowledge was meant to be shared generously. Colleagues admired his collaborative nature, noting that he often volunteered for extra projects, not for recognition, but because he genuinely enjoyed seeing others succeed. Outside of work, Todd's greatest joy was his family. He was a devoted father to two children, both still in school, whom he described as his reason for everything. Neighbors often saw him walking them to the bus stop in the mornings, waving goodbye with a proud smile, and picking them up in the evenings before heading home to prepare dinner together. His life, though busy, was deeply grounded in routine, responsibility, and love. Despite a demanding career and parenting duties, Todd had been feeling lonely in recent years. Divorced and focusing heavily on his children and career, he hadn't pursued relationships seriously for some time. But by 2023, he decided it was time to seek companionship again. He turned to online dating apps, hoping to meet someone who shared his values and could bring warmth into his life. Friends said he was cautious about dating, often asking them for advice on profiles he encountered, and planning to meet only those he felt comfortable with. It was during this period that Todd began talking to Terayona Pascal, a 32-year-old woman whose online profile seemed kind and approachable. Their chats were casual at first, with typical small talk about careers, family, and hobbies. Over time, their conversations grew more frequent, with Paschal expressing a desire to meet him in person. Todd, ever careful, still felt slightly apprehensive, but decided to trust her, hoping this could be the start of something genuine. He arranged to meet her at his home on the morning of April 19th, planning a quiet day together. He informed no one of his plans, perhaps thinking it would be just another small step in building a new relationship. But behind her friendly texts and polite messages lay something far darker, a motive and mindset he could never have foreseen. The morning of April 19th seemed uneventful in the quiet Hudson neighborhood, but sometime after sunrise, neighbors heard what they described as loud pops, like fireworks echoing through the street. Most ignored it, assuming it was nothing sinister.
Within a couple
That
of
was
minutes.
what you heard. The
Two shots. I'm assuming. I don't know. And then I thought someone was banging on something, and then a little pause, and then four more.
Okay. You saw? Can you describe that car?
It was a smaller car, light colored, maybe a light blue, light gray. I couldn't get the make of it.
But inside Todd Morgan's home, horror was unfolding. Todd had invited Terriona Pascal over that morning. They had been talking online for a while and finally decided to meet in person. Todd believed this was the beginning of something meaningful. For Pascal, however, it was something far darker. At around 9 a.m., Ring camera footage captured her car pulling into Todd's driveway.
7, the car is there? Okay.
I don't know how to work this thing. But that,
Okay, so that's the car.
yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to see anything from that or whatever.
Okay. I'll give this back to you. I'll go tell.
Okay, I'm not sure how to.
Yeah.
And then it jumps to 7:30 and it's gone.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
So what time is that? Right.
6:50.
50.
Yeah.
Okay. And then 7, it's gone.
Yeah. Well, the next spot on here is
7:30.
so there's a gap.
Okay.
And then it's gone at 7:30.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay.
Moments later, she walked up to the front door. Inside, no one knows exactly what was said between them. Perhaps small talk, nervous smiles, or uncomfortable silences filled the room. But soon, something triggered an eruption of violence. Gunshots rang out. Todd was shot multiple times in his own home, left to die alone as Pascal walked away. Blood pooled on the floor, and footsteps stained with it trailed behind her as she exited. She left him there lifeless and drove off without a hint of panic. Hours later, when Todd failed to pick up his daughter from school, staff grew worried. The reliable father never missed pickups. Calls went unanswered, and concern turned into fear. Police were sent to his home for a welfare check. They knocked, called out his name, and then forced entry.
2015 Porsche, black in color to Todd Morgan from that address. Valid native, has the CPW.
Is he in the floor? Oh, shoot. You said you see blood? 110 radio. Come on. Go run back. Get EMS out here. Oh boy. There's a lot of blood. Party looks to be, might have fell. Crap. Oh, it's open.
Inside, they were met with a scene of brutal finality. Todd's lifeless body, the smell of blood in the air, and silence echoing through the rooms he once filled with warmth. The crime was shocking not only for its brutality, but for its randomness. A first meeting with someone he barely knew ending in murder. Detectives knew from the start that whoever had done this had no intention of keeping Todd alive. Hudson police immediately secured the crime scene. Knowing time was critical, the bloody footprints exiting the home suggested haste, and nearby Ring cameras offered their first lead. Footage showed Pascal's car arriving and her walking in casually. Her exit, however, revealed a different scene. Quick steps, a shaken composure, and blood smeared on the porch and walkway.
I saw somebody come out of the house to the car that was next to the Porsche. They were in the car. I mean, it was there.
The Porsche?
No, it was next to the Porsche.
Okay.
And it was there when I woke up this morning at 5 o'clock, you know, as I walked.
The car was already there.
The car was already there. The person was due, when I woke up.
Okay.
But at 7:15, 7:20, I heard. And then I saw someone come out of the house, go to the car, opened up the car, was there for a while, and then took something back into the house, like a package or a box, it looked like.
Okay.
And then came back out, not running, but walking fast.
Quick paced?
Yes.
At what time was that?
It had to be 7:20.
At 7:20?
Yeah, that it all happened within a couple
That
of
was
minutes.
when you heard the
two shots. I'm assuming.
Two
I don't know. And then I thought someone was banging on something, and then a little pause, and then 4 more.
Okay. Can you describe that car?
It was a smaller car, light colored, maybe a light blue, light gray. I couldn't get the make of it.
Do you happen to have cameras?
I checked my ring.
You didn't pick it up?
It didn't pick it. It didn't pick it up.
Okay.
Okay.
It was it like a 4-door or 2-door?
I couldn't tell.
Did you see the person that was driving?
No, I didn't. No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not see.
Detectives reviewed Todd's phone records. They found calls and messages exchanged with Teriona Pashal, a 32-year-old woman he had recently met online. But that wasn't the only clue. A Kilingsas to Senegi hang-up call had been placed from Todd's address that morning. It was brief, only seconds long, but enough to ping cell towers and identify its origin. Tracking the call led them straight to Pascal. Further investigation revealed she had searched for Todd's address and information online before the meeting, suggesting premeditation rather than a spontaneous act. Inside the crime scene, detectives collected DNA evidence, including cigars left behind. Lab analysis confirmed they belonged to Pascal.
Okay, so the morning of April 19th, here's what we have. We have this Cash App payment, right? I went through for $50. We have another Cash App payment that was 23 minutes later for $1,000. We have this vehicle leaving Todd Morgan's house at around 7:23 in the morning on April 19th. You said that's your car.
Mm-hmm.
Have your phone at 328 West Streetsboro Street on April 19th at 7 in the morning. Actually have your phone at that address after midnight on April 19th, which looks like it was there overnight. It's not possible. Your DNA is inside of that house. Black and Miles are inside of that house. Kind of shipments that are inside the house that match shoes that you're wearing in Facebook photos.
Her digital footprint sealed her fate. After the murder, she discarded Todd's phone along a highway to avoid detection. But even then, she couldn't resist checking news sites for updates and searching for ways to track police investigations, revealing her fear and anticipation of being caught. Detectives pieced together a timeline. Paschal arrived in the morning, stayed briefly, committed the murder, and fled. Her car's license plate captured on neighborhood cameras provided further evidence, and an arrest warrant was swiftly issued. Within days, police tracked her down and arrested her, charging her with aggravated murder with a firearm specification.
Okay. You ever been to Hudson before?
I don't recall.
Okay. What about around
I go
April 19th?
to a lot of places.
Okay. But you can't recall being in Hudson?
No.
Okay. So your phone, why would it dial 911 on April 19th? In the morning of April 19th around 7:22 in the morning.
My phone?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why my phone would call. I didn't call nobody.
You didn't call 911?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I don't know. Did they say I called? I didn't call.
Yeah, we got your phone number. And we attempted to call back that morning. We didn't get an answer. So here's what's interesting about these two photos. Right? Okay, these two photos were actually on your phone.
On my phone?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they went on my phone.
You actually typed in a search for this guy, and you viewed this image on your phone. You also did a search for 320 West Streetsville Street, and you viewed this image on your phone.
I don't
Carrie,
know.
we're giving you an opportunity here to talk to us. We need to know what happened.
Okay, and I'm telling you, I don't know what's going on. But what do you have? I don't know what's going on.
Who's that?
As the investigation concluded and all evidence was compiled, the legal proceedings against Teriana Paschal began swiftly. From the moment of her arrest, the weight of the evidence left little room for doubt.
We got a lot of information. We have DNA evidence, we have video, we have phone calls, we have Bumble chat messages. Okay, we have shell casings, we have shoe prints. We've got a lot of stuff that is a lot of good evidence here. Okay, this is your opportunity to talk to us about it. What's that?
I really don't know what you want me to say.
I want to know what happened. We want to know what happened. We have a lot of questions. We want to know what happened. So, Todd Morgan sends you $50 morning of April 18th.
I don't know.
Okay, but he did. So, what I want to ask you is, there was another payment. About 23 minutes later, there was a $1,000 payment that was sent from Todd Morgan to Black Beauty. And you confirm that Black Beauty, this Cash App is you. That's you, obviously, in that picture. So he sent you $1,000. Now, we go back to a $50 payment. You say, guys send you random $50 every now and then. Okay, you guys send you random $1,000 payments?
No.
Okay, so
it can happen.
It could happen.
It could happen.
Prosecutors charged her with aggravated murder with a firearm specification, a charge that, if fully pursued at trial, could carry life without parole. During pretrial hearings, Paschal appeared quiet and subdued, her demeanor starkly different from the woman who walked so confidently into Todd Morgan's home that morning. Her defense attorneys initially attempted to argue for diminished responsibility, hinting at possible mental health issues and suggesting that her actions were not entirely planned. However, prosecutors countered with overwhelming evidence of premeditation. Her prior online searches for Todd's address, the Ring camera footage showing her arriving and leaving calmly, and her DNA found on cigars at the scene. Adding to the case's strength was her digital footprint after the murder. For days, Paschal had searched online news sites and police tracking methods, curious to see if she had been identified as a suspect. Prosecutors painted this as the behavior of someone who knew they were guilty and feared being caught. The narrative presented in court was clear. This was not a spontaneous act driven by fear or mental instability, but a calculated, intentional murder. During the sentencing hearing, Todd Morgan's family filled the courtroom. His children sat quietly, holding back tears as victim impact statements were read. His brother spoke first, his voice shaking as he described Todd's dedication to his family and students, and the irreplaceable void his death left behind.
Sean Dingus, D-I-N-G-E-S-S. I'm Todd's brother. I just want you to know how many lives you've affected by this. My brother and children, and they'll never see him again. There's just so many things I'd like to say, but I'm gonna leave it at that.
Todd's ex-wife also spoke, sharing memories of how he remained a loving and involved father even after their separation, and how their children now wake up every morning with a pain no child should endure.
I am Mary, and I share a child with the victim, Dr. Todd Morgan. I stand before you today, not just as a grieving friend, but as a voice for our daughter who will never have the chance to grow up with her father. Dr. Morgan was an exceptional intellectual devoted to his students and colleagues. He recently received an award in 2024 for his significant contributions to research, but tragically he was not alive to accept it. His kindness and inspiration touched everyone around him, and the academic community has now lost a remarkable mentor. Todd was also a loving father. Since his murder, my daughter's life has been irrevocably altered. At just 6 years old, she is at one of the most impressionable stages of her life. She was only 4 when she waited at school for her dad to pick her up, not understanding why he never came. When I arrived, she was confused and desperately wanted to call him, but each call went unanswered. I had to explain to her that her daddy wouldn't be coming back because someone had hurt him. I watched her curl up in my arms, hiding her face as she processed this unimaginable loss. For months following, she would cry out for us whenever we left the room, terrified that we wouldn't return. This fear of abandonment stemmed directly from the sudden absence of her father. She struggled with being alone even for a moment and faced challenges no child should ever have to endure. This trauma is emotional, confusing, and deeply rooted.
When Pascal was asked if she wished to speak, she stood and faced the family. Her words were simple but heavy.
Yes, to his family. I'm very sorry, and I hope that one day that you can find it in your hearts to forgive me. That's it.
Some believed her remorse was genuine, while others saw it as an attempt to soften her sentencing. Regardless, her apology could not undo the brutal reality of what she had done. The judge addressed Pascal firmly, stating that her actions showed a clear disregard for human life and left 2 young children without their father. He handed down a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 23 years, acknowledging the severity of the crime while following Ohio's sentencing guidelines.
I'm sentencing you to a period of 20 years to life on count 1, aggravated murder and unclassified felony. In addition, that sentence will run consecutive to the 3-year firearm specification, which is attached to that count 1. That firearm specification 3-year sentence must be served first, it must be consecutive, and it is in fact mandatory. This will make you eligible for parole, which there's no guarantee of that, at the earliest at 23 years, but you could serve up to life in prison for this matter. Do you understand all of that, Ms. Paschal?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
As the gavel fell, the courtroom remained silent, filled with an invisible heaviness that only such a senseless loss can create. Paschal was led away in handcuffs, her fate sealed by her choices. For Todd's family, the legal process was over, but the lifelong sentence of grief and emptiness was only beginning. News of Todd Morgan's murder spread quickly across Ohio and the academic community. At Cleveland State University, faculty and students mourned his death. Candlelight vigils were held, with hundreds gathering to share memories of the professor who had inspired them with his patience and dedication. His 2 children struggled to adjust to life without their father. For them, each day became a reminder of what was stolen. No more walks to school, no more Sunday breakfasts, no one to guide them through the milestones of life. Friends set up fundraising pages to support their education and care, but no amount of support could replace the love he gave them daily. Paschal's family also expressed shock at her actions, stating they never imagined she was capable of such violence. Mental health experts debated whether underlying psychological factors contributed to her decision to kill a man she had only just met. The murder also raised concerns about the dangers of online dating. Safety experts urged people to exercise caution, vetting new acquaintances thoroughly before meeting in person. Police departments across Ohio released public service announcements reminding citizens to share their meeting locations and details with friends or family, hoping to prevent future tragedies like Todd's. The murder of Dr. Todd Morgan left deep scars not only on his family, but on the entire Cleveland State University community. In the days following the sentencing, the university held multiple memorials in his honor. Colleagues shared stories of his passion for teaching, his kindness, and the unique way he made every student feel seen and valued. His office door, once always open, remained closed with a wreath hanging outside, a somber reminder of the man who once worked within. His children's lives were changed forever.
The impact of this loss lingers in our daily lives. I ask the court to consider the profound effects this crime has had on us. Dr. Todd Morgan was more than a victim. He was a beloved father, friend, and educator. His legacy deserves to be honored, and I hope that justice will be served not only for him, but for his children, who deserve to grow up in a world that remembers their father with love and respect.
Pascal's motives remain partly shrouded in mystery. While the prosecution presented her actions as premeditated murder, questions still lingered about why she chose Todd Morgan, a man she barely knew and who showed no aggression or threat toward her. Some speculated financial motives. Others suspected mental instability, though no formal insanity defense was pursued in court. Ultimately, only she knows the true reason she pulled the trigger that morning. For many, Todd's murder is a chilling reminder of how quickly life can be stolen, how trust can be exploited, and how even the most cautious among us can become victims. His story serves as a warning, but also as a testament to the impact one person can have in their short time on Earth. Today, his legacy lives on through the students he mentored, the colleagues he inspired, and the children he loved with all his heart. His life was defined not by the violence of his death, but by the compassion, knowledge, and care he gave to others. In the end, justice was served in court, but true justice would have been a world where Todd Morgan was still alive, teaching, laughing, and raising his children. A world where his life wasn't cut short by a stranger he barely knew.
Boss man, open the door, boss man. You got first. Let me see your hand, boss man.
I'm out. I'll get that stuff there.
Bill advised, I seen a black male moving inside. Gave him instructions to come out. He's not coming out.
Boss man, open up. Open up, boss man. Don't make it worse than what it is. Come out with your hands up. Don't fucking move.
Ain't nobody moving.
Yeah, I got him. You got him?
Ain't nobody moving.
Got him. Put your hand behind your back.
All right, go boy. I'm fine. Get it there.
220. That's too tight, officer.
Right now, it don't matter.
It don't matter. It don't matter.
You're hurting me. You're trying to hurt me. I know what you're trying to do. You're hurting me.
Bro, put your hand like you praying. Put your hand like you praying.
I'm a disabled vet.
All right.
You're hurting me.
Hey, check on the victim inside, man. She's motionless on the ground.
It's a quiet evening in Miami Gardens, Florida. Inside her small apartment, Bridget Knighton sits on her couch, trying to find a moment of peace. The past few years of her life have been filled with pain, fear, and unending anxiety. For so long, she tried to break free from the man who haunted her every step. The restraining orders were supposed to protect her. The police reports, the court documents, the countless pleas for help, all of it was supposed to keep her safe.
Huh? Oh, there. Four.
But on that fateful evening in May 2021, none of it mattered. She didn't expect him to show up again. She didn't expect her ex-fiancé to walk through the door, despite being legally banned from coming anywhere near her. But this time, he wasn't there just to argue. He wasn't there just to intimidate or threaten her. This time, he came with a gun. As she sat on her sofa, frozen in shock, he pointed the weapon at her. There was no last-minute apology, no hesitation. Just 8 deafening gunshots that tore through her body and echoed through the quiet halls of her building.
When I was putting the coat in, that's when I heard, I think 6 shots. Bah, bah.
I didn't hear no shots.
8 bullets that were meant to end her life forever. But this is not just a story about an attempted murder. It's a story about betrayal, not just by the man she once loved, but by the very system that was supposed to protect her. It's a story of a woman who survived the impossible, only to watch her attacker walk free. And it's a story that will leave you questioning, how could this happen? From years of hidden abuse to a shocking acquittal, stay till the end to find out how a woman who was shot 8 times is still fighting for her life. while her accused shooter walks the streets as a free man. To understand the horror of what happened in 2021, we need to go back to the beginning. Bridget Knighton and Gail Blount once looked like any other couple. Friends described them as loving, inseparable, and deeply committed. But behind that image was a truth so dark it was almost unspeakable. Bridget testified that from the very start, Blount showed signs of control. He wanted to know where she was at all times, who she was speaking to, and why she spent time away from him. At first, she thought it was love, a protective fiancé who cared deeply. But over time, the control turned into intimidation, and intimidation turned into violence. One day, while they were eating out at a restaurant, an argument broke out. Bridget tried to calm him down, embarrassed by the stares of strangers around them. But suddenly, Blount grabbed her and slammed her into a table. The room went silent. People watched, some in shock, some pretending not to notice. She remembers the humiliation on top of the pain, the feeling that no one would help her, that no one wanted to get involved. After that, things only got worse. Bridget said there were countless assaults she never reported, times when Blount hit her so hard she couldn't leave the house for days. She finally filed restraining orders, hoping it would stop him. But each time, Blount ignored them. He would come to her apartment, bang on her door, threaten her life, and leave her trembling in fear. She called the police. She told them about the threats, the physical attacks, the restraining order violations. Officers filed reports, but Blount always seemed to slip away, only to return again with more rage. For Bridget, every day was a battle to survive. Every night was a restless sleep, wondering if tomorrow would be her last. And then came May 2021, the day everything she feared finally happened. It was a humid evening in Miami Gardens. Bridget sat alone on her sofa, scrolling through her phone, trying to distract herself from the suffocating fear that had become a part of her life. Suddenly, she heard a knock at the door. Her heart dropped. She knew that knock. Standing outside was Blount. Once again, he was violating the restraining order. She didn't want to open the door. She didn't want to see his face or hear his voice. But before she could react, he was inside. The argument started immediately. Words flew like daggers, accusations, insults, threats.
Okay, what happened?
I don't know about him shooting her because I was asleep, but they've been arguing all night, like since like 8 o'clock.
Your dad and your mom live here?
That's his girlfriend.
That's his girlfriend. Okay. So your dad and your girlfriend, his girlfriend lives here?
She stays here.
She stays here, she'll live here. So this is you and your dad's place.
Yes.
She came over here?
Well, she's been
over here. So they were arguing since 8 o'clock, and you were asleep or you were awake when you heard? When you started hearing them argue?
When they was arguing. They've been arguing.
They've been arguing all day.
Yeah.
Were you awake when the shots went off?
No, I was asleep.
How did you?
I woke up
from the shots. And you came out and saw what?
I didn't come out.
You stayed in your room. Okay. Anything else happen? Did your dad come to your room at all?
Oh yeah, he told me like call the police. He shot her. He was sorry that, but.
Okay.
Can you loosen up this left hand?
You gonna have to sit like that.
I'm just saying, can you loosen up the left hand?
Oh, you don't have to wait. Okay. You're gonna have to wait. We got a lady bleeding out. Yeah. Watch your feet.
But something was different this time. There was a coldness in his eyes that terrified her to her core. Then, without warning, Blount turned and walked out of the apartment. Bridget sat there trembling, thinking it was over for now. But minutes later, he came back. This time, he wasn't empty-handed. He had gone to his car and retrieved his gun. Standing in front of her, he raised the weapon. Bridget's eyes widened in shock and horror. She didn't even have time to beg for her life. In that split second, she realized this was it. This was how she would die. Blount pulled the trigger once, twice, 3 times, until 8 bullets had torn through her body. She remembers the pain, a pain so unbearable she couldn't even scream. As she lay there, bleeding out on her sofa, she heard him say something that still haunts her to this day. "Look what you made me do." Those were his final words before he left her there to die alone.
I don't know where the casings are at now. Fuck. She pushed it. She pushed it over.
We got one here.
Yeah, there's one, but
the gun's over here, so they trying to.
The gun fell. The gun fell.
Yeah.
Just 3?
Yeah, there's so far 3, but the other one, the rescue.
When they were moving it.
She pushed it. We don't know where it went.
Where it went? Oh wait, no, that's a casing right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
But right there is the
See all 3 in front of you?
Oh, this right here.
So she was shot 3 times.
That's
The other one was an exit, right?
Yeah, that's the one that came out. She hit the ground.
But Bridget wasn't ready to die. She clung to life as paramedics arrived and rushed her to the hospital. For 2 months, doctors worked tirelessly to save her. 11 surgeries later, she was alive. But her life would never be the same again. In the aftermath of the shooting, Miami Gardens police arrived at Bridget Knighton's apartment to find a scene that spoke louder than any words ever could. A living room soaked in blood, bullet holes marking the walls and furniture, and a young woman barely clinging to life on a stretcher. Detectives knew immediately this wasn't a random act of violence. Within minutes, officers at the scene recovered spent shell casings and quickly pieced together that the shooter was someone Bridget knew all too well, her ex-fiancé, Gail Blount.
Haven't made contact with caller. Hey, come here. What did it look like to you? I said, what did it look like to you? No, look in there.
Bobblehead?
No, look in there. You person on the ground? Is she drunk? You drunk?
She's on the ground.
For real?
Yeah. She's bleeding. She's on the ground. She's bleeding. Okay.
Knock on the door, see if she can get to the door.
Boss man, open the door, boss man.
You got first.
Let me see your hand, boss man.
I'm out. I'll get us downstairs.
Bill advised, I seen a black male moving inside. Gave him instructions to come out. He's not coming out.
Boss man, open up, boss man. Don't make it worse than what it is. Come out with your hands up. Don't fucking move.
Ain't nobody moving.
I got him. You got him?
Ain't nobody moving.
Put your hand behind your back.
Go, boy.
I'm fine. Get us downstairs.
220. That's too tight, officer.
Right now, it don't matter.
It don't matter. It don't
You're
matter.
hurting me. You're trying to hurt me. I know what you're trying to do. You're hurting me.
Bro, put your hand like you praying. Put your hand like you praying.
I'm a disabled vet.
All right.
You're hurting me.
Hey, check on the victim inside, man. She's motionless on the ground. Don't got no way.
Ma'am.
Oh, Lord. What the?
Ma'am.
Bridget's condition was so critical that investigators couldn't question her for days, but they didn't have to wait long for confirmation. Her phone, the security cameras outside the complex, and neighbor statements told a clear story. Blount had come to her apartment that evening, despite multiple active restraining orders forbidding him from doing so. Hospital staff described Bridget's injuries in horrifying detail. 8 bullets had torn through her abdomen, legs, and arms, causing massive internal bleeding and shattered bones. Doctors warned detectives that if she did wake up, she would likely never walk the same way again, if at all. Detectives arrested Blount within 24 hours. They found him at his cousin's house, quietly sitting on a couch as if nothing had happened. When confronted, Blount didn't say much. He lawyered up fast, refusing to answer questions without an attorney present. The arrest report listed him as calm and cooperative, an eerie contrast to the violence he was accused of unleashing just hours earlier. Back at the station, detectives dug into the couple's history. They found stacks of police reports showing years of domestic violence calls, photos of bruises Bridget had provided, audio recordings of threatening voicemails, and court files with multiple restraining orders. The sheer amount of evidence painted a chilling portrait. Bridget had done everything she could to get help, but the system had failed her, again and again. When she was finally strong enough to speak, Bridget told detectives her version in painful, tearful detail.
Those restraining orders are just a piece of paper. They don't stop a bullet.
She described how Blount's anger would erupt without warning, how she often locked herself in the bathroom just to feel safe, and how she slept with her phone hidden under her pillow in case she needed to dial 911 in the middle of the night. She told them how Blount would break into her apartment despite the restraining orders, how she would sit silently on her couch, praying he would leave before things got violent. That night in May 2021 was the nightmare she'd always feared would come true.
He used his body to prevent me from fleeing or answering the door to the police, threatening to blow my brains out if I even uttered a sound. He also slammed me on a full table of food and dishes in a Pembroke Pines Denny. I repeatedly tried to escape him, but he always found me, often boasting about it. I was embarrassed, isolated, and without hope. If I must endure this pain for the rest of my life because I dare survive his attempt to kill me, then he should not be spared a similar fate. I have a problem with 20 years.
Prosecutors felt confident they had an airtight case. Witness statements, medical records, restraining orders, prior documented assaults, everything lined up. They filed an attempted murder charge, arguing this wasn't a crime of passion or sudden rage. It was attempted, premeditated murder. After all, Blount had left the apartment, walked to his car, retrieved a gun, and returned to shoot Bridget multiple times while she sat defenseless on her sofa. For almost 4 years, Blount sat in jail awaiting trial. Prosecutors offered him a plea deal for 20 years behind bars. Blount initially agreed until the day of the plea hearing when Bridget gave her victim impact statement. Her words were so raw and powerful that the judge took an unusual step. He rejected the plea deal outright. He said the proposed punishment did not match the magnitude of suffering described by Bridget. The trauma, the permanent injuries, the daily fear of retaliation.
I was not aware when I accepted the guilty plea that this was the background. I would have to agree that that would be an appropriate sentence, and I don't.
The judge's decision meant the case would now go before a jury. For Bridget, it felt like a chance for true justice, but also a terrifying ordeal. She would have to sit in a courtroom just feet away from the man who tried to kill her and relive every horrifying detail.
She saw somebody that is suffering, and she said, enough. I'm going to be suffering for the rest of my life. And I just feel like he should as well.
In court, Blount changed his story. No longer was he admitting guilt. Now he claimed he acted in self-defense. He testified that during their argument, he believed Bridget was reaching for a gun.
When I pushed her to the couch, she said, "Oh, I got something for your ass." And on the couch was her purse. And she reached for a purse. I believe she was reaching for her firearm.
That he felt threatened, that he had no choice but to shoot.
I took my gun out of the small of my back and I shot my gun. I was aiming at her lower extremities. I was just trying to stop a threat. I was just trying to incapacitate her, but not kill her.
Bridget sat in court, listening to every word with disbelief. She knew it was another manipulation, another lie to escape responsibility. She had never had a gun. She was sitting on her sofa, unarmed, when he shot her. The prosecution presented the restraining orders, the police reports, her medical records, and her emotional testimony. They showed the pattern of abuse, the ignored court orders, the escalating violence. They argued that Blount was a dangerous man who tried to kill the woman he once claimed to love, but the defense painted a different picture. They called Blount a man who was scared for his life, who acted out of fear and desperation. And to the shock of everyone in the courtroom, the jury believed him. Blount was found not guilty of attempted murder. The self-defense claim worked.
The defendant is not guilty. Oh, thank you. Verdict count 2, shooting a thorny deadly missile, with the jury finding as follows to the information charging Gail Blount. The defendant is not guilty. So Savio Michael Lanley, 4 person.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I also wish to advise you of some very...
Bridget's attacker was acquitted, despite the 8 bullets he fired into her body. But that wasn't the only charge Blount faced. 2 months before the shooting, he was charged with misdemeanor battery for allegedly pushing Bridget into a table at a restaurant. Prosecutors brought video footage showing a prolonged argument before the push. Bridget testified about the humiliation she felt that day, being attacked in public while everyone watched in silent horror. But once again, the defense argued that it was a heated argument that escalated and that Blount didn't intend to hurt her. The jury watched the footage, heard both sides, and delivered another shocking verdict. After spending nearly 4 years in jail awaiting trial, Blount walked free.
We were concerned initially that the jury may not believe him because he was a man and a large man at that, but at the end of the day, justice was served. The jury heard the truth and they sided with the truth. And because of that now, Mr. Blount is a free man, rightfully so.
Bridget was left shattered. Her body had been permanently damaged. She needed a cane to walk. Every step reminded her of the bullets that tore through her flesh. Every sleepless night reminded her of the man who tried to kill her and got away with it. She publicly spoke about her fear, her anger, and her heartbreak over the verdict. In her words, "I survived what should have killed me, but he took away my life anyway, because now I have to live every day knowing he's out there." Bridget continues to seek further restraining orders, fearing he might return to finish what he started.
My body's changed forever. Forever. This is why women can't come forward. I feel like the system don't have your back. It's awful. I can't believe this happened. How did it happen? In my heart, I know he's going to come back and try to finish what he started. That's my fear. He deserved more time. Why would you take a plea if you're not guilty?
Her case has become a powerful example of the failures in protecting domestic violence victims. If restraining orders couldn't stop him, if court testimonies couldn't convict him, what hope do other victims have? The Bridget Knighton case is not just about a shooting. It's about a system that failed to protect a woman who did everything right. She filed police reports. She went to court. She got restraining orders. But in the end, none of it could stop the violence. Today, Bridget continues to fight, not just for her own safety, but to raise awareness for other victims trapped in abusive relationships. Her story is a painful reminder that justice is not always served, and sometimes survival is only the beginning of a much darker battle. What do you think about this case? Did the justice system fail Bridget Knighton? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this story impactful, please like this video and subscribe to Sinister Crime Channel for more real-life crime stories that reveal the darkest truths of our society. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. On October 30th, 2022, a chilling 911 call came through the Aurora Dispatch Center in Colorado. The dispatcher's calm greeting was met with frantic, trembling whispers.
What is your first and last name?
Jessica Serrano.
Tell me exactly what happened, Jessica.
My ex-boyfriend has restraining orders, and he's not supposed to be here around me with this house. And I just found his jacket here, his jeans, and his keys here.
Okay.
In my closet, hiding.
Okay.
And I believe he's in the house hiding somewhere. But he wouldn't leave his Hummer keys laying in my house.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anybody that saw him in the house at all?
That what? Sorry.
You're good. Did anybody see him inside the house?
No, but his stuff is here.
Okay. Got it. Did you look around? Did you see him at all or anything?
No.
Okay. Okay. Bear with me 1 second, okay?
So we believe he's hiding somewhere.
Okay. How many people are in the house with you right now that you know of?
4.
Okay.
He's here, please. He has a gun. Hurry! The woman's voice cracked with sheer terror as muffled screams erupted in the background.
Do you have cameras around your house?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Did you see anything on the cameras?
I don't, not at the moment. I haven't, because my sister's the one that has the cameras, but I told her to check, so she's going to do that now.
Alright. Is anyone there experiencing any flu symptoms or been asked for self-quarantine?
No, ma'am.
Alrighty. I do have that in here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put them out there. If you do end up seeing him on camera or anything else, just give us a call back, but I have it in, okay? What's going on, Jessica?
Oh my God! There's shots fired at my house!
Okay, what's going on?
I don't know, I can't lost myself in the restroom.
Okay.
Help now!
Stay on the phone with me.
Help now!
Stay on the phone with me. Stay on the phone, okay? Don't hang up. Do you know who shot at the house?
No, we don't have to downstairs.
Okay. Okay. How many shots did you hear?
4.
Okay. Was that another one?
Oh my God.
Okay. Okay, stay on the phone. Stay away from the doors and the windows, okay? Okay, where is everybody else?
I don't know.
Okay, Jessica, take a deep breath. I have this in, okay? We're getting them out there. Just stay on the phone with me. Okay. Who's that in the background? Is there anything with you?
I don't know. No one's with me right now.
Okay. Do you know who's that yelling in the background? Okay. Okay. Stay on the phone, okay? Which room are you in? Are you in the bedroom or the basement? The first room? Okay. I need you to get down on the ground, okay? Get on your stomach for me.
My ball.
I know. I want you to take
I can't breathe.
this. Just throw this away and get victim services rolling, please. I know. I need you just to relax for me, okay? I know. I need you to relax for me, okay?
I was telling them to hurry up. I was telling her to hurry up.
Sweetheart. I know.
I know. My dad we always called you guys about him, always coming here, doing this and that. You guys don't arrest him. The dad and the mom always spells him out. It's always the same shit. What the? I just couldn't believe it.
I know.
Why?
I know.
Why?
I know.
Why me?
I know.
Why?
I know.
Why? Why? I told you guys, hurry up!
I know.
You guys wouldn't listen to me! You guys wouldn't listen! Why?
So,
dispatch.
How many do we have in there?
Children inside that bed that are they're good. Untouched.
Okay, so
Kids don't need anything. Kids don't need anything.
I'm here, Sergeant.
Mom of these two little ones.
I think those are her sister's kids.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I think those are her sister's kids. So.
Well, there's the sister. She's dead. So, can we get those kids out?
Yeah, we're gonna hold here.
Yeah. We need to work on getting those kids out. That lady.
We're gonna get them out a different way than
Danielle
this.
and Charlie would take care of those 2 kids. Okay, we need to do it.
Okay.
Post haste. You want us to leave any stuff in there?
Polly, have we? Where we asked for? Have we done a backyard?
We have not done a backyard.
This is open.
No, because she came in after I came in here, and I had to get her out of here.
Okay.
So I did not do a backyard search. How many fire do we have?
If she takes those 2, you're gonna go watch
Is there any way to get them out of here without having them see? Let's wrap them up in blankets.
Yeah. We'll probably just go out this way, cover eyes and head. We'll take the children's. Well, right now, head to toe, they're okay.
Yeah.
So we're green.
Okay.
I'm
grabbing a blanket. I'm gonna hold it.
Okay. Will you both transport in yours?
Yeah, I'm just gonna hold the blanket here. Though.
You're taking them to the hospital, right?
Yes.
Okay.
As the chaos unfolded, 59-year-old neighbor Rudolfo Salgado Perez heard the screams and ran over to help. But Joseph executed him too, ensuring no one survived his wrath. The entire massacre lasted mere moments, yet its devastation would haunt the neighborhood forever. Amid the horror, Maria and her 2 small children were left alive, trembling and frozen, as she whispered desperately to the 911 dispatcher, who had heard it all. When officers arrived at the home on Geneva Street that night, the scene they encountered was beyond horrifying. The living room was soaked in blood, bodies lay scattered where they had fallen, and Maria sat trembling in a corner, clutching her 2 children in silent shock. The faint smell of gunpowder still hung in the air. Detectives knew instantly who they were looking for: Joseph Castorina. His name was on the restraining orders filed just days earlier, and his threats were well documented. But finding him would become a race against time. Within hours, the Aurora Police Department issued an alert statewide. They checked nearby motels, bus stations, airports, and reached out to his known associates. But Joseph was already gone. As detectives pieced together the timeline, they discovered that his escape wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. He had help.
Thank you. Where's he at? Over where? Where?
He's running. He's running.
She's saying he's running northbound. I'm trying to get more information. Yeah, that car just comes southbound right there. Check the street. I've got 1 down, gunshot wound in the kitchen. Get the female out of here. Get out of here. Ma'am, come on. You need to get out of here. Come on. Go out there. Go outside. Go outside. You stay outside. Come on. I'm trying to get one. What's he look like?
Joseph Castorina.
Well, what's he wearing?
He's wearing a gray sweater. I don't know. He wanted to kill me too, but he didn't have no more bullets.
Okay, you gotta come back over here. I want you to sit right here. Sit
right here. My dad, Mariana. The girls.
What girls?
They're in the room. I don't know.
Okay, stay here. I need you to stay here.
The girls.
I might have some girls inside. Some taller females.
The girls.
want you to stay here.
I'm sorry, I just can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Here's the deal. I'm going to be straight up and honest with you. We want to get in contact with your brother before somebody else from some other agency does, okay? I would rather your brother be alive and under arrest than to be dead or shot because he does something stupid, okay? Is there any way that you can help us out to find out where he's at?
I already tried calling him. My sister tried calling him. He won't answer.
Okay.
Does he have any social media that he might be on right now?
Why would his phone be hidden? Why would we be seeing stuff around here?
What do you mean?
As far as where he was last located.
For his phone?
Yeah.
Like his phone here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is there anything? Is there anybody that he would be living or going to someone's house around here or anything like that?
I don't know. I just got home. I noticed my dad and mom were gone. They were over here. I called them. That had happened with Joseph.
Okay, so are you cold right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm scared. I'm nervous.
Okay. Don't be nervous around us. We're here to make sure that things are good. So there's nobody that's in danger inside your house. Okay.
Just my mom, my sister. I seen him earlier before I left to work.
Okay. What do you mean? And how was that contact? How was that?
I just seen him walk out the door. That's it.
Okay. Was he mad? Was he angry?
No. I think he said something about a haircut.
All right. So here's the deal. If you're cold, here's the deal. I don't want you going back in the house because I don't know if he's in there somewhere. All right. And obviously, I'm not going to arrest you or anything like that. I just don't want you going back in the house, and I'd like you to be compliant with us, okay? Because the situation is.
Well, see, I've never been in a situation like this. So I'm like, I don't have my dad. My dad's the one that usually, you know.
Well, I mean, my deal is preservation of life, right? So if you come out, maybe we can have you call the other females that are in there and have them come out of the house if you would. Everybody that's in the house, everyone that's in the house.
Surveillance footage showed his brother, Juan Angel Castorena, and cousin, Carlos Casillas Flores, coordinating his getaway. They provided him with a car, cash, and a burner phone to avoid digital tracking. Detectives tracked his phone records, which led them to a series of short calls made to contacts near the Mexico border. They worked with the FBI and U.S. Marshals, expanding their search beyond Colorado. The FBI's Violent Crimes Task Force joined the manhunt, deploying resources to monitor highways, checkpoints, and border crossings. As days turned into weeks, fear gripped the Aurora community. Rumors spread that Joseph might return to finish what he started. Victims' families were placed under extra security, while authorities assured the public they were doing everything possible to catch him. The investigation soon revealed that Joseph had fled to Aguascalientes, Mexico. His brother and cousin coordinated with relatives there, moving him between safe houses, feeding him, and keeping him hidden. Investigators worked tirelessly with Mexican authorities, tracing social media activity and financial transactions connected to his helpers. In Mexico, he lived like a fugitive, sleeping on mattresses on the floor, eating basic meals, never stepping outside in daylight, and always listening for footsteps at the door. FBI agents and Mexican federal officers closed in as they gathered intelligence on his exact location. By December 2022, nearly 2 months after the murders, they were ready. At dawn, armed officers surrounded a small, modest home in Aguascalientes. Inside, Joseph was asleep, unaware that his time on the run was over. He didn't resist when officers burst in and cuffed him. As he was escorted outside, cameras captured his blank, emotionless face. A man who once believed he could outrun justice, now defeated.
Acabo la detención de la persona de nombre Joseph Mario Castorena.
Back in the U.S., his brother and cousin were arrested and charged as accessories after the fact. Their loyalty to Joseph now cost them their freedom and left their own families to pick up the pieces. For detectives, Joseph's arrest was a moment of relief, but the pain of what he had done could never be erased. Their relentless pursuit brought a killer to justice, but it could not bring back the lives he stole. For weeks after the brutal murders, fear gripped the entire community. News channels flashed Joseph Castorena's face day and night as the Aurora Police Department, FBI, and U.S. Marshals launched an intense manhunt. Residents double-locked their doors, terrified that he could be hiding anywhere. Investigators quickly uncovered that Joseph hadn't acted alone in his escape. His brother Juan Angel Castorena and cousin Carlos Casillas Flores had helped him flee within hours after the murders. With their assistance, Joseph crossed the border into Mexico, vanishing into the bustling streets of Aguascalientes. He believed he could disappear there, blending into a place where few knew his crimes. But law enforcement refused to let this quadruple murderer remain free. The FBI coordinated with Mexican federal authorities, sharing surveillance footage, digital footprints, and tips that trickled in from both sides of the border. They learned that Joseph was moving between safe houses, often sleeping on floors, eating whatever he was handed, and hiding away from windows like a hunted animal. On a quiet morning in December 2022, after nearly 2 months of relentless searching, Mexican authorities surrounded a small residence in Aguascalientes. Inside, Joseph was sleeping on a thin mattress on the floor when officers burst in. He didn't fight back. There were no screams or desperate attempts to escape. It was as if he knew his time was up. As officers cuffed him and led him outside into the blinding sun, Joseph kept his eyes down, refusing to acknowledge the cameras flashing around him.
I know it's been a long day, probably for you as it is us. Are you cool with talking to us?
I am. But I feel more comfortable with an attorney, so.
Okay. Do you have an attorney?
No, I would like to get one.
Yeah, I get that's. I'm trying to figure out. So right now you're here. You have a federal hold.
The hold would be here till and go to Colorado, or how would that work?
Yeah, end up back there.
Yeah. So I don't know if you would. I don't honestly know really how that works. You have to get. I don't know if it's a federal attorney and then you'd be a state public defender.
Okay.
So okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously we came from Colorado. I'd really like to hear your side of the story. We've talked to quite a few of your family members.
Yeah, man. So. From what I seen in the news, it's totally different. So, my side.
Right.
How things happen.
Right. Okay. And you don't want to.
No.
It's my understanding you already have been.
Have been what?
Talking about what's going on.
Somewhat.
You just don't want to tell us, or what?
Well, honestly, I would feel more comfortable with an attorney, to be honest. It's the way I'm feeling.
Joseph would allege the Mexican police had treated him roughly, something the Colorado police guaranteed would not happen.
Well, yeah. I guess we were told that you were talking to the Mexican authorities.
Not really. Not really, no. They're a little more brutal, so.
Well, you're shaking like a leaf here.
Yeah.
You know nobody's going to beat the shit out of you in Phoenix, Arizona, so I don't know.
What?
I said nobody's going to beat you up here.
Oh, no, I know. I was shooken up and just was passed out of there. I haven't slept, so. Honestly, just 2 hours sleep. I haven't slept since, say, Saturday that I woke up in the morning. I slept off, so. Yeah, the Mexican police didn't rough me up a little bit, so.
They're not very nice. It's an understatement. Alright, well, like I said, nobody's going to beat you up here, so if you don't want to talk, that's kind of where we're at.
Meanwhile, his brother and cousin were arrested back in the United States and charged as accessories after the fact. Their loyalty to Joseph cost them their freedom, leaving their own families to carry the weight of their choices. In March 2023, Joseph was extradited back to Colorado under heavy security. As he stepped off the transport plane, shackled and surrounded by federal agents, the families of his victims knew that the man who destroyed their world would finally face justice. In May 2024, the courtroom in Arapahoe County, Colorado, was filled with an overwhelming silence as Joseph Castorena walked in, wearing a prison jumpsuit and chains clanking around his ankles. He showed no emotion as he sat down, staring blankly ahead while prosecutors read out the charges. 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder. Family members clutched each other's hands, holding back tears as photos of the victims flashed on courtroom screens. Prosecutors painted Joseph as a cold-blooded killer, a man who believed he owned Maria and who saw her family as obstacles in his way. They played the haunting 911 call for the jury, Maria's trembling whispers pleading for help, the muffled screams, and the final gunshots that ended 4 innocent lives. Jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, many wiping tears from their eyes. It was a recording none of them would ever forget. The defense struggled to find a narrative to justify his actions. There was no insanity plea, no claim of provocation, only weak arguments about his mental state and personal hardships. But the evidence was overwhelming. The restraining orders filed days before, the clear premeditation of breaking into the home and waiting for hours, and the deliberate execution of each victim. During closing statements, the prosecutor looked directly at Joseph and said, "You didn't just steal 4 lives. You stole a mother's dreams, a father's pride, a brother's future, and a neighbor's courage. You left behind nothing but grief and shattered families, and you did it with no remorse." The jury deliberated for only a short time before returning with their verdict, guilty on all charges. As the judge read out the sentences, 4 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 24 years for attempted murder to be served concurrently. Joseph showed no emotion, no tears, no apologies, just an empty stare that chilled everyone in the courtroom. For the families, there was no relief, only the heavy knowledge that justice had been served, but their loved ones would never return. The judge's final words echoed through the silent courtroom. "You chose to be their executioner. You showed no mercy, and this court will show you none." On September 3, 2024, the courtroom in Arapahoe County was packed. Family members of the victims sat in silent anticipation, clutching photos of their loved ones as they waited for the final judgment. For them, this day was not about revenge. It was about holding the man who tore their world apart accountable for every life he extinguished. Joseph Castorina walked into the courtroom wearing a tan prison jumpsuit, chains rattling around his ankles with every step. His expression was blank, his eyes cold and empty, as he sat down without even glancing at the grieving families before him. Judge David Carpel read through the verdicts one by one. 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent except for the soft sobs of the victims' families as they heard each guilty count echo through the chambers. The prosecutor spoke firmly, describing Joseph's crime as an act of pure evil, a calculated, cold-blooded execution driven by his obsession with control and a deep hatred for anyone who stood in his way. Family members gave their victim impact statements through tears. Maria spoke with a trembling voice about watching her father, brother, and cousin die within seconds, her words breaking as she described how her children now wake up screaming from nightmares, asking when their grandfather is coming back. The neighbor's family described Rudolfo Salgado Perez as a hero, a man who sacrificed his life trying to save others. Each statement filled the courtroom with grief, anger, and a heavy silence that even Joseph couldn't ignore. When it was time for sentencing, Judge Carpel looked directly at Joseph and said, "You committed these murders with premeditated, calculated malice. You ended 4 lives in moments and showed not a shred of remorse. You chose to be their executioner, and for that, this court chooses to ensure you will never harm another soul again." He then sentenced Joseph to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, ensuring that even if one sentence was overturned on appeal, he would never walk free. He also sentenced him to an additional 24 years for attempted murder, to be served concurrently with the life terms. Joseph sat motionless as the words fell upon him, his eyes staring forward, unblinking, offering no apology to the families he destroyed. For the victims' families, justice was served that day. But as they left the courtroom, tears streaming down their faces, they knew nothing could ever bring back the people they lost. Justice, while necessary, could never fill the empty chairs at dinner tables or silence the echoes of their loved ones' final screams. The aftermath of Joseph Castarena's crimes left a deep, gaping wound in Aurora, Colorado, one that may never fully heal. The Serrano family home, once filled with laughter, birthday celebrations, and quiet dinners, became a silent monument to tragedy. Friends and neighbors gathered outside, leaving flowers, candles, and photos on the front steps to honor the victims whose lives were stolen in such a brutal, merciless way. For Maria, every day became a struggle to survive the memories burned into her mind. The image of her father falling to the floor, the sound of her brother's final breath, and the feeling of complete helplessness as her world shattered in seconds. The community came together to support her and her children, raising funds to help them relocate and rebuild what little sense of safety they could. But there were questions that haunted everyone. Could anything have prevented this? Could the restraining order have saved them if enforced differently? Or was Joseph's rage so determined that nothing would have stopped him from destroying those lives that night? Advocates for domestic violence victims use this tragedy as a rallying cry, pushing for better protective systems and urgent intervention for those threatened by partners unwilling to let go. Today, Joseph Castarena sits in prison, sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars with no hope of ever walking free again. But for the families left behind, justice, while necessary, does not erase the pain. 4 lives were taken by a man who believed he had the right to decide who deserved to live or die, simply because he could not handle rejection. This case serves as a chilling reminder that evil can hide behind the most ordinary of faces. A neighbor, a boyfriend, a friend. Sometimes the people we think we know hold darkness deep within them, waiting for a moment to strike. If there's one lesson to take from this tragedy, it's to never underestimate threats of violence. Always trust your instincts, seek help, and protect yourself and those you love before it's too late. If this story shook you, subscribe for more true crime cases that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Stay aware, stay safe, and remember, behind every quiet street, there are secrets we can't even begin to imagine.
A woman has been found guilty of murdering an individual in Oxford.
Scarlett Blake killed Jorge Martin Carreno back in 2021.
Scarlett Blake is wandering about town looking for a suitable victim, encounters Jorge.
She filmed herself killing.
It sounds like a TV show. And just to warn you that this story does contain graphic descriptions of Scarlett Blake's crimes.
Oxford, with its spires that have weathered centuries and streets steeped in academic legacy, is a place where time often feels as though it stands still, frozen in the golden haze of tradition and intellect. But in the quiet flow of the River Cherwell, something monstrous stirred one summer afternoon in 2021. A body floated face down, a figure tragically out of place in such historic serenity. It wasn't the setting for murder, or so the city thought. At first, the whispers were soft, merely ripples across tea-stained pub tables and hushed corridors of college dormitories. Just an accident, they said. A man alone, perhaps drunk, perhaps troubled, had stumbled into the water and never emerged alive. The local news barely lingered on the incident. A fleeting tragedy, soon swept aside by the city's enduring rhythm of lectures, exhibitions, and tourists snapping photos of medieval arches. But Oxford was wrong, terribly wrong. The man in the river had a name, Jorge Martin Carreno, a 30-year-old engineer from Spain.
He was happy, and in the words of his friend, ready to enjoy every single drop of his life.
Two years passed. The city forgot. Jorge's family didn't. Across the ocean in the United States, a phone rang. What the caller said would pull Oxford's buried horror into the light, digging up something so dark it defied belief. The voice on the line belonged to a trans woman named Ashlyn Bell, who claimed her partner, living in Oxford, had just admitted to murder. Her name, Scarlett Blake. Until that moment, Scarlett was a ghost, a hooded figure caught only in snippets of grainy surveillance footage from that fatal night. A silhouette drifting behind Jorge like a shadow with purpose. She'd remained nameless, faceless, a phantom in the files of a cold case, until Ashlyn's call shattered the silence. And what she revealed was not just a confession, but a descent into madness. Scarlett didn't just kill Jorge. According to Ashlyn, she fantasized about it.
Scarlett Blake killed Jorge Martin Carreno back in 2021 as part of a warped fantasy inspired by a Netflix documentary.
She had murdered a before, live streaming the act as a macabre gift to Ashlyn.
She filmed herself killing
And then she had set her sights on a human victim.
Well, one day I want to learn how to do this to a person.
The authorities, who once viewed Jorge's death as an accident, were forced to reckon with something far more disturbing. A killer among them who had walked the streets of Oxford, not just with intent, but with a twisted plan already unfolding. And there were signs, chilling ones. Surveillance videos showed Jorge and a hooded individual together in the early hours before his death. A vodka bottle cap discarded near the scene held the DNA of two people, one of them Jorge, the other unknown, until now. When police examined Scarlett's belongings, they found the matching jacket seen in the footage. Ashlyn had kept it, mailed to her by Scarlett after the murder. It still bore damning traces, both physical and psychological. Scarlett, they would discover, had even implanted a pet microchip into her own body. She was identified as part animal. She meowed at strangers.
She has dissociative identity disorder. That's the first thing. Yeah. And one of those identities is of a cat.
And she was obsessed with another infamous killer who had once tortured before murdering a man for online fame. This wasn't just a murder case. It was a psychological horror unfolding beneath the dreaming spires. But what drove Scarlett to kill? Was it the thrill, the desire to emulate her macabre idol, or something even darker, hidden in layers of a fractured mind? Oxford had been content to believe in its own innocence, a city of poets, professors, and peace. But beneath its cobbled lanes and ivy-draped colleges, something had festered. And by the time it was exposed, one young man's life had already been taken in the most horrifying way. This is the story of Jorge Martin Carreno. This is the story of Scarlett Blake. And it begins not with a scream, but with silence. A silence broken only by the lapping of river water and the slow, steady eye of a security camera.
4 months before she's going to encounter Jorge, she live streams, she entices a neighbor's cat to her house. There are things that she does to the
Beneath the Gothic facades and scholarly reputation of Oxford lies a quieter, less glamorous truth, one that rarely makes its way into postcards or prospectuses. While its college's birth world leaders and Nobel laureates, the city also hides darker realities: petty crime, addiction, homelessness, and at times, unspeakable violence. For Jorge Martin Carreno, this backdrop was meant to be a new beginning. Instead, it became his graveyard. Jorge had arrived in England in 2019. Born in Las Palmas, Gran Canaria, he was bright, artistic, and driven. A trained electrical engineer, Jorge was more than a man of numbers. He was curious about the world, passionate about photography, and profoundly human in his compassion for others. His move to Oxford was a bold step, an attempt to chase opportunity and independence, even after a breakup with his longtime girlfriend, with whom he remained close friends. He worked at a BMW production plant in Oxford and was known for his warm nature, his readiness to help others. But it was a quiet creativity, not the kind that clamored for recognition or attention. In a place like Oxford, where the exceptional is often lost in the noise of tradition, Jorge was simply another story in motion, until the night of July 24th, 2021. That evening began like any other social outing. Drinks with friends at a local pub, conversations, laughter, casual banter. Jorge moved from place to place, enjoying the warm buzz of a summer night in the city. But as the evening wore on, his circle thinned. Friends left. The night grew longer, and Jorge, slightly inebriated, wandered the cobbled streets alone. Surveillance cameras would later reveal a haunting trail. At 3:33 a.m., Jorge is seen searching his phone on Worcester Street. Minutes later, he drops his wallet, disoriented. By 4 a.m., he is sitting on the ground when a hooded figure approaches him. They talk, then they walk together. Jorge, perhaps trusting, perhaps vulnerable, doesn't resist. He has no idea he is walking into the hands of a predator. Enter Scarlett Blake. To the world, Scarlett was an enigma. Young, quiet, living in a modest residence not far from where Jorge's body would be discovered. But beneath the surface, she harbored fantasies so twisted they almost seem fictional. She had met Ashlyn Bell online, a woman living in the US, and their connection was immediate, intense, and deeply disturbing. The two shared a fascination with violence. It was more than a morbid curiosity, it was obsession. By March 2021, Scarlett had taken her first step into real-world horror. She bought a trap, lured a neighborhood cat, captured it, and then, with cold calculation, murdered the animal while live-streaming the act to Ashlyn as a birthday present. Studio lights, a tripod, and a camera captured every horrifying moment. It was, in Scarlett's mind, a gift, a trial run. The killing of the cat didn't satisfy her. If anything, it emboldened her. Her next act would have a human target. She prepared in chilling detail. Combat boots, a garrote made from piano wire and metal handles, vodka, a combat jacket. She had rehearsed this in her head, studied the documentary Don't Furnin with Cats, and found inspiration in another criminal's trajectory. Scarlett was no longer role-playing her fantasies. She was living them. As Jorge stumbled through Oxford's darkened streets, Scarlett saw opportunity. She sent Ashlyn a picture wearing the very jacket seen in surveillance footage. Then she left her home, murder in her heart. Hours later, Jorge's body was found floating in the river. For over 2 years, the case went cold. Police were left with no suspects, no motive, no clear cause. An initial autopsy ruled it as a tragic drowning, but Jorge's family never accepted that version. They knew something more sinister had happened. Their faith was rewarded when Ashlyn made that call. It wasn't just a confession, it was a revelation. Scarlett had told Ashlyn everything, and Ashlyn, guilt-ridden and fearful, handed investigators the thread they needed to unravel the horror. From there, the investigation gained momentum. DNA, digital trails, surveillance footage, all began to paint a picture not of random tragedy, but of premeditated, calculated murder. Scarlett had crafted an image of innocence, but behind the mask was a cold-blooded killer who had transformed her perverse dreams into a brutal reality. Oxford would never see itself the same way again. It was 4 a.m. on a quiet July night in Oxford when Jorge Martin Carano made a decision that would seal his fate. He stood up from the curb, brushed off his jeans, and began walking with the stranger who had just approached him. There were no raised voices, no signs of struggle, nothing that might have alarmed a passerby. On the surface, it looked like two people having a late-night chat, but within hours, one of them would be dead, and the other would vanish into the fog of speculation. The surveillance footage showed them moving together through the empty city, Jorge unaware he had taken the hand of a predator. Scarlett Blake walked confidently beside him, her demeanor calm, her purpose fixed. This wasn't spontaneity, this was a plan in motion. By the time the pair reached South Lodge Park, just a few hundred feet from the River Sherwell, it was too late. What exactly happened in those final moments remains disturbingly unclear, but what is certain is this: Jorge did not die alone, and his death was no accident. When emergency services were called later that day, they found his body floating face down in the water, lifeless and bloated. He was pulled from the river gently, his features still peaceful, his clothes waterlogged. A toxicology report would later reveal alcohol in his system, enough to impair, but not enough to incapacitate. His cause of death was initially ruled as drowning, possibly due to intoxication. The bruising on the back of his head was explained away as a tragic fall, but it didn't add up. The trauma didn't match the story, and neither did the silent figure in the hooded jacket.
A trans woman apparently obsessed with violence has today been jailed for life for the murder of a stranger in Oxford.
Scarlett Blake is going to encounter Jorge Carano, who is a Spanish national in Oxford.
It is Jorge's life that will be remembered over and above the actions of this defendant.
Two years would pass before the real story came to light. A story involving not just one crime, but a chilling pattern of behavior. After Ashlyn Bell's shocking call to the authorities, the true extent of Scarlett Blake's actions unraveled like a horror novel penned in real life. Ashlyn provided a trail of messages, photos, and videos. Among them, a photo of Scarlett wearing the exact combat jacket seen in the surveillance footage, taken just hours before Jorge's death. Scarlett had texted it to Ashlyn with a simple message: "Tonight." A few hours later, Jorge would be dead. What came next was even more disturbing. Forensic teams returned to the crime scene and found a discarded Smirnoff vodka bottle cap. Testing revealed it contained DNA from both Jorge and an unidentified second individual. When cross-referenced with Scarlett's DNA, the match was undeniable. Investigators now had motive, means, and opportunity, but what was Scarlett's intent? Ashlyn's testimony filled in the blanks. Scarlett had long fantasized about murder. She and Ashlyn often role-played dark, twisted scenarios. The killing had been a preview, a depraved trial run meant to escalate. Scarlett had expressed a desire to replicate the crimes from Netflix's Don't Fort with Cats, a documentary about another killer who began with before targeting humans. Scarlett idolized that story. She had even curated her own macabre persona, a hybrid of predator and prey. At times, she meowed in public, insisted she had the soul of a cat, and bizarrely implanted a microchip inside her breast, registering herself in a national animal database. For her, identity blurred with fantasy, and fantasy morphed into bloodstained reality. On the night of the murder, Scarlett carried a self-made garrote fashioned from piano wire and metal rods, a silent, efficient weapon designed to strangle. Ashlyn later confirmed this was the method Scarlett described using. The court would learn that Jorge's injuries were consistent with strangulation, followed by drowning. He may have been unconscious before entering the water, or worse, he may have been alive, gasping beneath the surface. What made it all the more chilling was Scarlett's complete lack of remorse. After the killing, she returned to her online life, casually chatting with Ashlyn, shipping the combat jacket to the US as if it were a souvenir. When questioned by police, her primary concern was giving up nicotine. The crime was not just about control or fantasy, it was about legacy, a perverse attempt to insert herself into the folklore of internet infamy. She wanted to be remembered, not as Scarlett Blake, but as the next evolution of Luca Magnotta. And for a while, she got her wish. But Jorge's story didn't end at the riverbank. It would follow Scarlett into the courtroom, into the headlines, into the nightmares of everyone who ever walked alone at night and thought, "I'll be fine." Because on that night in Oxford, evil didn't wear a mask. It wore a jacket, smiled softly, and walked in silence beside a good man who never saw it coming. The arrest of Scarlett Blake didn't come with screams or sirens. It was quiet, almost anticlimactic. A knock on the door, a request to step outside. But behind the calm was a storm of evidence that had been building for months, ready to sweep her into the criminal justice system. The person who once prowled Oxford streets in the dead of night now stood under the sterile lights of a courtroom, exposed and unmasked. Scarlett's demeanor in custody was nothing short of surreal. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared. She was inconvenienced. "Do you have nicotine patches?" she asked a nurse while being processed. In her mind, it seemed, this wasn't a murder trial. It was an interruption to her day. The prosecution, however, saw it very differently. They came armed with digital trails, video footage, DNA evidence, and perhaps most powerfully, the testimony of Ashlyn Bell. With clinical precision, they built a case of a killer who meticulously planned her crimes, who rehearsed her fantasies through the torture and murder of animals, and who graduated from pet cruelty to premeditated murder. They painted Scarlett as a sadistic fantasist, a woman who didn't just stumble into violence, but who cultivated it, nurtured it, and eventually unleashed it. A woman who posted disturbing photos online, a woman who built a garret by hand, a woman who photographed the tree near which she killed Jorge, and then returned to it 1 year later for a selfie. A woman who smiled while murdering a kid and talked about wanting to do the same to a human, then did. Scarlett's defense, meanwhile, wavered between denial and delusion. She insisted she didn't kill Jorge, that she merely walked with him, left him alive and well, and went home. When pressed, she adopted an even more bizarre strategy, claiming that part of her identity was feline, that she was part cat. She meowed at the jury, described a cat part of her personality as being pure joy and childlike innocence. She talked about emotions, about role play, about being misunderstood. But she never offered an answer that explained Jorge's death. Psychologists evaluated her thoroughly. They found no history of mental illness, no condition that could explain or excuse her behavior. What they found instead was clarity. Painfully cold, emotionally detached clarity. The jury took only a few hours to reach a verdict. Scarlett Blake was found guilty of the murder of Jorge Martin Carano. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 24 years before she could even be considered for parole. An additional 4-month sentence was tacked on for the killing of her neighbors, a sentence many, including Jorge's family, found woefully inadequate. Outside the courtroom, Jorge's loved ones held one another, both broken and relieved. They had spent 2 years in limbo, mourning without answers, grieving without justice. Now they had a name, a face, and finally a reckoning. But justice, though necessary, didn't erase the pain. In a public statement, Jorge's family honored his memory. His life was stolen, they wrote, cutting short his projects and dreams. They described him as joyful, ambitious, endlessly curious. A man who brought light into the lives of those around him, only to be snuffed out in the dark. They also issued a call to action, a plea for a world in which such cruelty could not hide behind anonymity or be dismissed as accident. A safer world where monsters couldn't disguise themselves as friends. The city of Oxford, too, was forced to look inward. The case shocked its residents. This wasn't London or Manchester. This was a place where murder wasn't supposed to happen, let alone at the hands of someone who lived among them, shopped where they shopped, walked the same streets, and smiled in passing. The media dubbed Scarlett Blake the Luka Magnotta wannabe, but she was something different, something perhaps worse. Because while Luka filmed his crimes for fame, Scarlett committed hers in near secrecy, her satisfaction drawn not from an audience, but from execution. Ashlyn Bell faded from the spotlight after the trial, carrying the heavy burden of her role in the case. She had enabled Scarlett, indulged her fantasies, even received the jacket worn during the murder. But in the end, it was her voice, trembling, tired, that helped bring a killer to justice. As for Jorge, his story will not be forgotten. He lives now in the laughter of friends who remember him, in the unfinished art, the echo of music, the ideas he never got to realize. He was a man of warmth, taken by someone cold, a light extinguished by darkness. But his justice, it was served, in full view of the world. There is a haunting kind of silence that follows justice. Not the kind that soothes or heals, but the kind that lingers, that wraps itself around the memory of a crime too horrific to forget. For the family of Jorge Martin Carano, the conviction of Scarlett Blake was not a triumph. It was an end to a nightmare, yes, but not the end of pain. Scarlett is now locked away, a name scrawled into the grim annals of modern true crime. Her trial and conviction are already the subject of articles, online discussions, and law enforcement seminars. But behind the headlines and courtroom sketches lies a deeper, more disturbing truth: that evil does not always come loudly. Sometimes it walks quietly through ancient cities, wearing smiles, sharing jokes, blending in. For 2 years, Scarlett Blake existed in the public's periphery, shopping at the same stores, passing others on the street, perhaps even laughing at jokes in a pub, while Jorge's family wept oceans of grief oceans away. She lived her life while another's had been cruelly ended for nothing more than the satisfaction of fulfilling a dark fantasy. What's most unsettling is that Jorge and Scarlett were not connected by a vendetta, a feud, or even a relationship. They were strangers. She hunted him the way predators choose prey, not for who he was, but for what he represented: vulnerability, availability, and an opportunity to indulge her worst desires. Jorge was not careless. He was not reckless. He was just human, trusting enough to believe he could walk alone at night without consequence. And that's the bitter truth this case leaves behind. Sometimes being kind, open, and trusting is all it takes to become a target. Scarlett's obsession with online infamy and her idolization of Luka Magnotta speaks to a dangerous growing trend where fame, even infamy, becomes currency. Where being remembered even for something horrific is seen as better than being unknown. Where the boundaries between fantasy and action, between chat rooms and crime scenes, blur until they vanish entirely. Her sentence, life imprisonment with a minimum of 24 years, may seem like justice served. But for Jorge's family, no number will undo what was done. No court can bring back their son, their brother, their friend. The void left by his absence will always echo. His laughter, once a daily joy, now survives only in memory and stories. And yet, from this senseless tragedy, there are lessons to be drawn. Lessons about the power of digital footprints, about the quiet strength it takes to come forward, as Ashlyn eventually did, about the resilience of a family who refused to accept the easy explanation, and most of all, about the enduring value of human life, even and especially when it's taken for granted by those who see it as expendable. In a city known for its wisdom, Jorge's case has become a warning to look closer, to speak louder, to care more, and perhaps to never forget that evil often wears the most unassuming faces. As the seasons change in Oxford, the River Cherwell continues to flow, past the parks, beneath the bridges, whispering secrets only the water remembers. Jorge's story has joined those secrets, etched into the current, a reminder of what was lost and what was revealed. And so, as the world moves on, as it always does, we are left with the image of Jorge, not as a victim, but as a man who lived with kindness, curiosity, and quiet brilliance, a man who sought beauty, who shared joy, who loved deeply and was loved in return. His story does not end with his death. It ends with our decision to remember him, not just as the man who was taken, but as the life that was lived. Justice was slow, justice was painful, but justice was delivered. It was a chilly Sunday afternoon in Waukesha, Wisconsin, the kind of day that smells like pine needles, hot chocolate, and nostalgia. November 21st, 2021, out of nowhere, a red SUV broke through the barricades. It wasn't supposed to be on that street. The road had been closed to vehicles, but this one didn't slow. It accelerated. Eyewitnesses described the moment with stunned horror. The SUV zigzagged deliberately through the crowd, striking one person after another. Some thought the driver was trying to avoid people.
It kept going all the way down the block to People's Park, the stoplight, and continued straight through it.
It's a little bit difficult to process, just especially how fast everything went when we were downtown. You think in hindsight about what response you could have to stop the guy, and it's just, even if I was right in front of it, it would have been hard to stop.
Chaos erupted instantly. Screams replaced carols. Candy bags were dropped.
It's just absolute chaos, people screaming. This doesn't happen here. I don't understand why. I really don't understand why. It's just kids having a good time for Christmas, and then this SUV comes barreling through.
The SUV didn't stop. It continued speeding down Main Street, leaving devastation in its wake. Within the hour, police tracked down the suspect, a man named Darrell Brooks. Surveillance cameras had caught every detail of his erratic escape. He had abandoned the red SUV, a Ford Escape registered in his mother's name, and attempted to hide in a nearby backyard. He knocked on a stranger's door, shivering, claiming to be waiting for an Uber.
Hey, can I called an Uber, and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please?
But it was all a lie. As the town reeled from the horror, the story behind the man began to unravel. Darrell Brooks was no mystery. He had a 2-decade-long criminal history, spanning multiple states. Just weeks before the parade, he had been released on a $1,000 bond after allegedly using that same SUV to run over his ex-girlfriend. Now 6 people were dead, dozens more scarred for life. But this case wasn't just about a terrible act of violence. What followed was one of the most bizarre and confounding trials in American criminal history. Because Darrell Brooks didn't hire a lawyer, he didn't accept a plea deal. Instead, he chose to represent himself. What unfolded in the courtroom over the following weeks would leave legal experts stunned, victims re-traumatized, and viewers around the country questioning how justice could survive such madness. This is the story of the Waukesha Christmas Parade tragedy, a case that would test the limits of empathy, accountability, and sanity. A town's cherished tradition turned into a battlefield, and one man's descent into chaos, live streamed in real time for the world to see. Long before the horror unfolded on Main Street, Darrell Brooks had left behind a trail of red flags, scattered across multiple states and decades. Born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1982, Brooks grew up in a turbulent household. By his own account, he was first treated for mental illness at the age of 12. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder and a personality disorder, he cycled through medications, therapies, and crises. His mother, Dawn Woods, would later say that without treatment, he became explosive.
I've been hearing Darrell slowly slipping for the past 2 months. Shouting, it's acting out, it's throwing chairs, it's destroying things. It's all of the above. It's like someone setting off a timer. Know when the manic is going to end and how far it's going to go.
But Brooks didn't just battle his own demons. He inflicted pain on others. By the late 1990s, he had already begun racking up charges: battery, resisting arrest, possession of drugs. In 2006, he moved to Nevada, where things got worse. That year, Brooks was convicted of statutory sexual seduction after impregnating a 15-year-old girl. He was 24 at the time. As a result, he was required to register as a offender, a status he repeatedly violated in the years that followed.
I thought I would just be this wonderful father, just be the greatest dad ever. You know, the vision is just like, I'm gonna give him everything that I didn't have. But then it's like reality set in. You actually become the drug, not even a human being. Basically, that's how I felt. Like I wasn't a human anymore. I was just something vile, disgusting, despicable. I could go on. I could use a lot of words, but that's what I became. It's really what I became.
After returning to Wisconsin, Brooks cycled in and out of jail throughout the 2010s. The charges stacked up: strangulation, battery, domestic violence, bail jumping. Many involved women, often romantic partners, who describe Brooks as volatile and controlling. Despite his extensive record, many of his cases ended in plea deals, dismissals, or light sentences. The system, it seemed, was always one step behind him. By 2021, Brooks was once again in trouble, and once again, dangerously close to the edge. In early November, just weeks before the parade, he was arrested for using his SUV to run over his ex-girlfriend, Erica Patterson. The incident occurred during a heated argument in a gas station parking lot. He was charged with recklessly endangering safety, but remarkably released on bail just days later. The amount? $1,000. That decision would soon draw national outrage. How could someone with such a history of violence, instability, and disregard for the law be out on the streets? In the lead-up to the Waukesha attack, Brooks's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He posted videos online, including music videos featuring himself rapping in front of the same red SUV later used in the attack. His lyrics hinted at paranoia, rage, and a general disdain for authority. Brooks insisted the court had no authority over him. He claimed that being referred to by name violated his rights.
How would you describe Mr. Brooks's haircut today?
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name.
Oh. Sir, I understand your objection. Please do not interrupt with that further so that the questioning of the witnesses may continue. You may answer.
If you say that name, I'm objecting.
And the jury will disregard the objection if it's solely for the name purposes.
He objected to all evidence, all witnesses, even the legitimacy of the charges themselves. To him, the system was fictional. But to the victims and their families, His destruction was all too real. There is no single explanation for Darrell Brooks. He is the product of untreated mental illness, systemic gaps, violent tendencies, and personal failures. He is a cautionary tale about how the justice system can miss or ignore the warning signs. And he is a symbol of how delusion and violence can combine to create devastation on a scale that no one saw coming. What led him to snap that day remains a matter of speculation. Was it the argument with Erica, the pressure of his crumbling life, or a deeper, darker detachment from reality? What's certain is that Darrell Brooks was not an unknown threat. He had been known, documented, arrested, charged, and released, time and time again. Until finally, there was no more room for leniency, only reckoning. Sunday, November 21st, 2021, began like any other parade day in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The town buzzed with energy. Performers lined up in sequence. Families filled the sidewalks along Main Street. Children clutched paper cups of cocoa, their noses red from the cold. At 4:39 p.m., that sense of safety vanished. Witnesses say a red Ford Escape appeared from a side street blocked to traffic. The SUV paused briefly, enough to draw attention, but not concern. Then it accelerated. A witness recalled hearing the engine rev loudly before the vehicle surged forward, breaking through barricades and entering the parade route. The horror was immediate.
216, I need another at Hartlow and White Rock. I have another person reported it. Okay.
Instantly, you ran the award card. Right now, we're just talking.
Wisconsin West, I'm checking for injuries. There was someone running through the parade route at a high rate of speed. 3206, 1078, 1078. Okay. 102! Hey, 1078! We're only about 10 to 15 people down on the street!
Who assaulted you? Who ran?
We're arguing.
What is your name? Give me your name. Harris, what's your date of birth?
October 7, 1990.
So, 10/7/1990? Erica Patterson? Okay. Okay.
The SUV drove directly into the crowd, striking marchers from behind. At first, some onlookers thought it was an accident, maybe a medical emergency, a driver who lost control. But the SUV didn't stop. It kept going. The vehicle honked intermittently, swerved from side to side, and appeared to intentionally veer toward groups of people. Several witnesses would later describe it as zigzagging, not to avoid bodies, but to hit more of them. One by one, victims were struck with brutal force. The dancing grannies bore the brunt of the first wave. Tamara Duran, 52, was marching with them for the first time. Virginia Jenny Sorensen, 79, and Leanna Owen, 71, both longtime members, were also hit. Wilhelm Hospel, 81, wasn't marching. He was there to support his wife, but he was killed nonetheless. Jane Kulik, 52, was walking alongside a Citizens Bank float when she was hit. The chaos spread rapidly. People screamed, ran, dove to the ground. Children were torn from parents in the stampede. Witnesses reported seeing bodies in the street, shoes flung across the pavement, candy bags abandoned mid-reach. Emergency responders already on the scene rushed in to help. Bystanders joined them, performing CPR, applying pressure to wounds, and dragging the injured to safety. Gunshots rang out, but they weren't from the vehicle. Police had opened fire in an attempt to stop the SUV. It didn't work. The vehicle continued for several blocks, tearing through a packed intersection, blowing past stoplights and vanishing into the nearby neighborhoods. In total, 62 people were injured. 18 of them were children. 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, marching with his baseball team, would die days later in the hospital. His 12-year-old brother, Tucker, survived but sustained serious injuries. The attack was over in minutes. but its damage would last forever. While emergency crews stabilized the wounded and secured the area, police launched a rapid search for the driver. Less than a mile from the parade, a neighbor reported seeing a red SUV in his driveway. The vehicle had cut through his backyard and sideswiped another car before being abandoned. Surveillance footage soon confirmed the driver. A man in dreadlocks, gray hoodie, later seen shedding his sweatshirt and hiding in a child's backyard playhouse. At 5:01 p.m., just 22 minutes after the massacre began, Daryl Brooks knocked on the door of a nearby home. The owner, Daniel Ryder, had just returned from a hunting trip and was unaware of what had occurred. Brooks, shivering, claimed he was waiting for an Uber.
Hey, I called an Uber, and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please?
Ryder let him in, offered a jacket and a sandwich, and allowed him to use his phone. Minutes later, as sirens blared and officers flooded the street, Ryder asked the man to leave. Brooks complied, but returned soon after, banging on the door, claiming he forgot his ID.
My ID! My ID!
By the time officers arrived, Brooks was still nearby.
Alright? Hands up! Put your hands where I can see them! Whoa! Hands up!
Hands up! Put your hands where I can see them! Put your hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Do it now!
He was arrested without incident. In his pocket was a key to the red Ford Escape. The vehicle was registered to his mother. At the station, Brooks initially denied everything. He said a friend drove him to Waukesha. He denied driving the SUV. He denied hitting anyone.
I'm trying to be as open and honest with you as I can be. You know, I'm Christian too, and believe me, I'm not perfect. And neither are you. And I'm not calling you a terrible man. I'm not saying you were out yesterday hunting, and just let me finish. But you did not walk to that house. You did not walk to that house. You did not come here in a tan Kia. You didn't.
No.
You did not come out here in a tan Kia. Okay? You got a key in your pocket, your car, your mom's name. Okay? And that key works for that car. For the love of God, Marcus. For yourself, for your family. You know what happened yesterday for the people. Tell me what happened.
Well, what?
With the car.
What am I being
with your mom's car? You're driving goofy. People called you in. You drove out of there in your mom's car, the red car. You're driving a little silly, probably because you're pissed. You met up with Erica in the car at the park. Now, initially, I believe you told us the gas station. Do I have that right? A red Ford Escape. She got in. You talked. And what you're telling me seems pretty consistent, that there was nothing physical between the two of you.
No.
But you met her in the car.
I didn't put my hands on her.
But you met her in the car.
Tim, what's going on, man?
Asking you a question.
You
were out there driving kind of crazy. Some people said you were driving kind of crazy. We got reports of it. You got the key. You got the car. Did you take the car or did your mom give you the car? I know you know what car I'm talking about.
I just want to know. So
some people reported all those people out there reported that car driving a bit erratic.
I know what you're saying. All I'm saying is this. We all been straight up with each other. You knew it was more to what you was asking me yesterday.
Didn't know.
That would explain the FBI and all that, right?
They're not here today. So if it's that big a deal, you don't see them here today.
Come on, Kurt. Hey, we been.
You guys met in the car in the park.
We been cool, man, the whole time. If I did something wrong,
that's why they were here. But do you see them here today? They're not here today.
Yeah, but y'all lied to me, man. You made it seem like they just come for no reason.
Well, here's the thing, Darrell.
And I'm like, what? If it's
listen to me for a minute. I can give you a clean slate here.
I apologize.
Because you have lied to us as well. Because you came out here in the red Ford Escape. Okay, that is what you came out here in. You had the key. All right?
But the evidence was overwhelming. Cameras, witnesses, forensic data, even his own music video showing him rapping beside the very same red SUV. The rampage on Main Street was not a crash. It was not an accident. It was an attack. Deliberate, cold, and devastating. 6 people lost their lives. Dozens more would carry the scars, physical and emotional, forever. In the hours following Darrell Brooks' arrest, the small city of Waukesha found itself the focus of national attention. Police announced that they were no longer searching for a suspect. They had him in custody, along with the vehicle and a mountain of video evidence.
We're no longer looking for a suspect vehicle. We do have a person of interest in custody at the moment, but this is still a very fluid investigation.
But the investigation had only begun. Detectives quickly pieced together a timeline. Brooks had been involved in a heated confrontation with his ex-girlfriend, Erica Patterson, shortly before the attack. Security footage showed her exiting the red SUV, followed by Brooks and 2 other men. The argument escalated off camera. Patterson later told police Brooks had struck her in the face. A 911 call falsely claimed he had a knife. Minutes later, Brooks got back in the SUV and sped off, straight toward Main Street. Law enforcement also uncovered disturbing details about Brooks's history. He had a long rap sheet that spanned over 2 decades and included domestic violence, sex offenses, bail jumping, and resisting arrest. But what truly outraged the public was the fact that he had been released on a mere $1,000 bond just days before the massacre, for using the same SUV to run over Erica in a previous incident. As the shock wore off, the judicial process began. Brooks was charged with 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 1 for each victim who died, along with more than 70 additional charges tied to injuries and reckless endangerment. His bail was set at $5 million. Still, he entered a plea of not guilty. In early 2022, Brooks's legal strategy took a strange turn. He entered an insanity plea, only to later revoke it. In September, his public defenders filed a motion to withdraw from the case. The reason? Brooks insisted on representing himself. That decision would transform the trial into a surreal and often chaotic spectacle. From the first day of court, Brooks challenged the system. He claimed to be a sovereign citizen, a fringe belief that one is not subject to U.S. laws or court authority.
Jurisdiction has to be proven, for the record. Has to be proven. Has to be proven. You know that just as well as...
Mr. Brooks,
you know that.
Please do not make statements that mischaracterize the law.
You know it has to be proven
or that
for the
impugn
record.
the integrity of this
You
court.
know it has to be proven
and the
on the
proceedings
record.
here.
You know
The
it
jury
has
is
to be proven.
advised to disregard the statements that Mr. Brooks is making regarding subject matter jurisdiction. They are not evidence, and you are to disregard them.
He argued that the court lacked jurisdiction over him, that his name was misused in all caps letters, and that no one could prove he was the person identified in the case. At nearly every hearing, he interrupted judges, questioned the legitimacy of witnesses, and argued over basic courtroom procedures. Judge Jennifer Dorau, tasked with presiding over the case, showed remarkable patience. But Brooks tested the limits of the court daily. When he disrupted proceedings, he was removed from the courtroom.
Ain't nobody gonna talk to me like that. Nobody. I don't have a problem with doing what you ask me to do, not tell me. Just like when I asked you about subject matter jurisdiction that you have yet to prove on the record. But somehow I'm being intentionally disruptive. Come on, man. Stop. Just stop it. No, there ain't no please.
You are
nothing.
being disruptive.
Ain't
You
no
are
please
being
nothing.
disrespectful.
You're always
The
going to
witness
find
may
some
step
reason to
down.
say somebody's being disruptive because they want the truth to be out there. Man, quit it. You're supposed to be the
Mr.
judge.
Brooks, I'm advising you that continued interruptions will result in you forfeiting your right to be present
and
in this courtroom.
under what law and
during
fact can you do that?
Illinois versus Allen.
Okay,
sir.
but the fourth option that you made up, that's not even in the law.
Mr.
Because
Brooks,
you can't do that.
I need to make a
By law, you
ruling.
can't do
I
that.
need to
And
make
you
a
know you
finding.
can't.
All right, I'm going to excuse everyone. Mr. Brooks is being removed from the courtroom. He will continue in the neighboring courtroom. Please make sure he has his objection signed and a pad.
And sent to a neighboring room where he could participate via video, often seen holding up a handwritten sign reading "Objection." On several occasions, he refused to wear proper courtroom attire or hid behind stacks of legal boxes. At one point, he stripped off his shirt mid-hearing and threatened to destroy court property. Despite the chaos, the trial pressed forward. The prosecution built its case on a foundation of overwhelming evidence. Video footage captured every stage of the attack, from the parade route to Brooks's attempt to flee. Dozens of witnesses took the stand, including police officers, parade participants, victims, medical personnel, and even the neighbor who sheltered Brooks before realizing who he was. A forensic inspection of the red SUV found no mechanical defects. The idea that the vehicle couldn't stop was refuted.
Which brings me back to the vehicle. What if the vehicle couldn't stop because of the malfunction?
Objection, fact, not in evidence.
What if the driver of the vehicle was unable to stop the vehicle? Does that make the driver a crazed, or not crazed, a rage? Does that make the driver in a rage and intent on killing people? You have the decision.
In a bold move, prosecutors introduced a music video in which Brooks rapped in front of the same red Ford Escape used in the attack, further linking him to the vehicle and reinforcing the intentional nature of his actions. But proving intent, not just identity, was crucial.
Just testified that this was the alleged defendant. How do you know that? Can you see a face?
Which question are you asking? Those were two.
Can you see the face on the circled individual in that exhibit?
In this clip, I cannot see the face of the person that is circled.
So how do you know who it is?
I can tell who that is because I have watched this video in its entirety, and I can tell that it is you based on all of my contacts with you.
Prosecutors argued that even if Brooks was enraged, confused, or panicked, his decision to continue driving through the parade without stopping clearly showed intent to kill. Intent, they said, is in the act itself.
In this case has always been, why did this happen? What was he thinking? Why did he do this? Again, those are things I don't necessarily have to prove to you. His intent, I do have to prove, and I submit without any doubt. There's overwhelming evidence that this was an intentional act by Darrell Brooks and an act of utter disregard for human life. I say that for these reasons, folks. Number one, first and foremost, just stop driving. That's intent, folks. No reasonable person is going to come across a group of teenagers playing band instruments, drive over them and keep going.
Brooks maintained his innocence throughout. He claimed the prosecution failed to prove their case. He challenged the identity of witnesses, asked bizarre questions, and made rambling final statements that seemed more philosophical than legal. The jury, however, was not confused. After less than 2 hours of deliberation, they returned a unanimous verdict. Guilty on all 76 counts, including 6 for first-degree intentional homicide. Each homicide charge carried a mandatory life sentence. Sentencing was set for mid-November, with over 30 victims expected to deliver impact statements. The trial was over.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Darrell E. Brooks, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide.
But the trauma it revealed was only beginning to surface. What remained was a community trying to heal and a country reckoning with how one man, failed by the justice system and driven by a maelstrom of violence and delusion, brought unimaginable horror to a day meant for joy. As the verdict echoed through the courtroom, guilty on all counts, there was no applause, just quiet sobs, the sound of people breathing again after holding their grief for weeks. Darrell Brooks stood motionless, the man who had transformed a holiday celebration to a crime scene, now sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. But for Waukesha, no sentence could undo what had already been done. In the weeks that followed, victim impact statements poured in. Family members of the deceased described a loss so deep that language failed them.
Discussion since the verdict was announced that perhaps the decision to represent himself is grounds for appeal. Are you concerned at all about that?
Well, Mr. Brooks has a right to an appeal. Every defendant does. And I fully expect him to take advantage of his rights as a convicted defendant in this case. I am very confident in the record that Judge Duro made and his decision to represent himself. Yes.
They spoke not just of the people who had died, Tamara, Ginny, Leanna, Wilhelm, Jane, and little Jackson Sparks, but of the holes they left behind. Spouses now slept alone. Children faced birthdays without parents. Classmates left seats empty for friends who would never return. Parents of injured children described nights filled with nightmares and hospital visits. Some survivors would never walk the same again. Others carried internal scars, invisible to the world, but no less real. Counselors and trauma teams descended on schools and community centers, trying to help a town find language for the unspeakable. At the heart of it all was the question that had haunted prosecutors, reporters, and ordinary citizens alike. Why? What could possibly drive someone to do something so cruel, so senseless? The court had proved intent, but the motive remained a mystery.
Big things in this case has always been, why did this happen? What was he thinking? Why did he do this? Again, those are things I don't necessarily have to prove to you. His intent, I do have to prove, and I submit without any doubt. There's overwhelming evidence that this was an intentional act by Darrell Brooks and an act of utter disregard for human life. I say that for these reasons, folks. Number one, first and foremost, just stop driving. That's intent, folks. No reasonable person is going to come across a group of teenagers playing band instruments, drive over them and keep going.
Even Brooks's rambling defenses and erratic behavior offered no clear explanation. Rage, mental illness, delusion, all were possible, but none were certain.
What has led to Daryl's behavior?
His mental illness, not being medicated. He says, Mama, I'm fighting for my life. And I said, I know that, baby. But we have to look at reality for what it is.
What is it?
I said, you did do what they said you did, even though it wasn't intentional, but you did, and you're going to have to go to prison.
Daryl's not an attorney. How do you think he's going to handle the proceedings?
And I hate to say this, you're going to see manic, full blown. That's what you're going to see.
In the public eye, the case became a lightning rod for broader issues. The fact that Brooks had been released on a $1,000 bond days before the attack ignited national debate over bail reform and judicial discretion. Critics pointed to a broken system that allowed a repeat violent offender to be free while prosecutors waited for court dates. Lawmakers vowed to review bail policies. For some, it was too late. The damage had already been done. Brooks, now serving multiple life sentences, continues to claim that he was misunderstood, misrepresented, misidentified, even as his own words, videos, and actions paint a picture of undeniable guilt. His courtroom antics, once seen as mental instability, are now viewed by many as part of a calculated strategy to undermine the process and set the stage for appeal. An appeal he has promised. Whether or not he succeeds, most legal experts agree the trial itself was unusually thorough. Judge Jennifer Duro's handling of the proceedings, despite repeated disruptions, was widely praised. Prosecutors presented an airtight case. The jury remained composed through weeks of emotional testimony. In a system often criticized for its flaws, this case was, at the very least, a demonstration of due process prevailing against chaos. But while the legal chapter may be closing, Waukesha's healing is far from complete. A memorial now stands at the site of the parade, where flowers, teddy bears, and handwritten notes testify to the lives lost. Each November, a moment of silence is held in their honor. The parade continues, but with heightened security, a changed route, and a somber air that wasn't there before. Survivors, too, are finding ways to move forward. Some have started foundations. Others speak publicly about trauma and resilience. Families like the Sparks have become symbols not only of tragedy but of strength, willing to face the darkest day of their lives in order to honor those they loved. In the end, this was more than a story about one man's violence. It was about a community's strength, about the fragility of peace and how quickly it can be stolen, about the courage to testify, to grieve publicly, and to rebuild when the world watches your worst day unfold on live television. The people of Waukesha did not choose to become a symbol, but in the wake of tragedy, they have become one of compassion, resilience, and justice hard won. The scars remain, yes, but so does the memory of what was lost and the determination that it never be forgotten. If you found this deep dive into the Waukesha Christmas Parade case informative, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with others who care about justice and true crime storytelling. Your support helps us continue creating thoughtful, in-depth content on the cases that matter. There's a chilling irony to how ordinary evil can appear. A neighbor, a co-worker, a quiet man at the grocery store, his expression blank, his presence forgettable. No red flags, no sinister music swelling in the background, just eerie normalcy. But what if behind that mask of mundane routine lies a mind sprawling into a dark, violent fantasy? One meticulously constructed from threads of loneliness, obsession, and delusion. In the summer of 2014, Wyoming, Michigan, an otherwise peaceful suburb nestled in the American Midwest, was rocked by a horror so twisted it felt torn from the pages of a psychological thriller. The kind of case that haunts a town long after the headlines fade. It began like so many cautionary tales of the internet age, with a simple Craigslist ad. A young pregnant woman named Brooke Slocum made a desperate post. She needed $50 urgently. The ad was short, emotional, and raw, an SOS sent into the void, hoping someone decent would respond. Someone did. But decency was the farthest thing from what he offered. His name was Brady Oostrike. He wasn't the monster you'd expect, not at first glance. He wasn't the grinning sociopath or the twitchy-eyed creep. In fact, he was quiet, polite. A little awkward, people said. He held a respectable job as a lineman for an electric company. He was a churchgoer once. He volunteered in Haiti. He loved Renaissance fairs and collected swords. Just a guy with quirks, right? But Brady had secrets, horrifying ones. And within the walls of his otherwise unremarkable home, those secrets festered into something unspeakable. When Brooke Slocum disappeared alongside her boyfriend, Charles Oppenheer, police initially treated it as a typical missing persons case. Young people go missing. They get scared, they run. But this time, something was different. Something felt wrong. Oppenheer's abandoned car, discovered near a wooded park, was the first clue. What lay just a few yards beyond that would unravel a darkness no one could have prepared for. Oppenheer's body was found, headless, mutilated, hidden under sticks.
Police wondered if this case would ever come to a close. They've been looking for years with no luck. Then last week, a farmer came upon what he appeared to be a skull. Avenue north of 6 Mile Road, 17 miles from where police say the scene of the crime was, Gazan Park in Wyoming. That's where the rest of Oppenheer's body was found. It's still unclear why his head was placed in these woods. Police have not found any connection between Oostrike and this area. Oostrike did work for a power company and traveled a lot. Police think perhaps he found the area while working, but for now it just appears to be random.
Brooke, heavily pregnant, was nowhere to be found. That's when the digital breadcrumbs began to surface. The Craigslist messages, the username, Mike's Hard. And slowly, methodically, investigators began to piece together a horrifying puzzle. What they uncovered led them straight to Brady Oostreich and to the house that would earn its nickname, the House of Horror. But let's pause here. Imagine for a moment a basement with chains bolted to the floor, swords on the walls, stun guns, cages, a handwritten contract on the table, a map marked with unknown pins, videos, yes, videos of a woman in captivity, forced to perform, made to smile for the camera, forced to say it was all a game. Only it wasn't a game. Police had no idea that while they waited outside Brady's home to execute a search warrant, Brooke Slocum was still inside, alive, terrified, and running out of time. Her captor, calmly preparing for his next move.
Had we known that she was in there, had we had any knowledge or any information, we didn't know what role she played in this. We knew she was missing. There was some concern about maybe she was a victim that he had taken care of and had maybe disposed of the body or whatever. We had no idea.
Had parked just to the north of Oostreich's home to keep an eye on it. But since they didn't know whether Brooke Slocum was inside, there was nothing they could do without a search warrant.
Watching the news, reading about the search for her, knowing they were coming. What happened next would spark a high-speed chase, a tragic end, and a discovery so devastating that seasoned detectives would later say they'd never seen anything quite like it. But what made Brady Oostreich snap? What triggered the descent from eccentric loner to sadistic killer? And more terrifying still, was Brooke his only victim? This isn't just a story of murder. It's a story of how the facade of civility can crumble in the most violent of ways, of how a website meant for connection became the hunting ground for a predator, and of how the cries of one young woman nearly went unheard until it was far too late. This is the case of Brady Oostreich, and you're about to see what happens when the internet's shadows conceal the darkest of human impulses. You wouldn't expect someone like Brady Oostreich to become the center of one of Michigan's darkest true crime sagas. On the surface, he was painfully ordinary, quiet, withdrawn, even helpful. Born in December 1982, Brady was the only son among 4 children raised by Richard and Christine Oostreich. His early life was steeped in conservative, religious values. He attended the Montana Wilderness School of the Bible, where students were taught to live humbly, think righteously, and find meaning in Scripture. For a time, it seemed Brady took those lessons to heart. He even joined a church mission to Haiti, building schools and hospitals in exchange for the chance to talk about God. To those who knew him then, he was the textbook picture of a good man. But photographs from that time tell a different story. Something distant behind the eyes, something you can't quite name but can't ignore. A gaze too empty, a smile too thin. Like his soul was one step behind his body. When the people who knew him back then look back now, they don't remember what he said. They remember how he felt. Unsettling. Office. Brady lived alone in a modest house in Wyoming, Michigan, a quiet suburb with wide streets and narrow secrets. He worked as a lineman for the local electric company, a steady job that kept him up poles and off the radar. Most days, he came and went without anyone noticing. But behind closed doors, his mind was unraveling. He withdrew from family, stopped calling friends. His world began to contract, and within that shrinking bubble, a darker Brady began to take shape.
Oostreich's close friend, Andrew Weiner, tells us the last time he was inside was about a year ago.
He wasn't completely isolated. In 2002, he met a woman at a Bible school. 11 years later, they were engaged. She called him sweet, gentle, a teddy bear. But when she broke off the engagement in 2013 and moved to Canada, something inside him broke for good. He didn't take it well. She left with a $30,000 diamond and sapphire ring. He was left with silence and rage. In the months that followed, Brady sank into a depression that metastasized into obsession. He began journaling, but these weren't typical reflections. These were strange, poetic fragments full of contradictions and delusions. I know I am crazy, therefore I am not crazy. "Isn't that crazy?" he wrote in one. In another, he described walking between a church and a slaughterhouse. The blood of a woman as both life and death. It wasn't art, it was a warning. He spent more time alone. He filled his home with weapons, swords, crossbows, knives. He had a fascination with Renaissance fairs, fantasy role play, and the Elder Scrolls for Oblivion. Escaping into make-believe worlds was easier than living in the real one. In those fantasy spaces, Brady wasn't heartbroken or rejected. He was in control. He was powerful. And that illusion would become his obsession. And then came Craigslist. At first, it was just browsing, a curious look through personal ads, missed connections, anonymous thoughts scribbled in digital ink. But before long, Brady began replying. He created aliases, most notably Mike's Hard, and tested how far he could push boundaries. He wasn't looking for romance. He was looking for submission, control, a chance to make his fantasies real. No one knew what was happening behind the walls of that nondescript house on Colby Avenue. Outside, the grass was trimmed, the blinds were drawn, the mail was picked up. Inside, Brady was assembling something monstrous. His basement began to change. Bolted chains, ropes, stun guns, knives, cages. He scrawled out, "Contract." He filmed himself preparing what he called a role-play room. But the roles he envisioned weren't games. They were nightmares. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Brady Ostrike slipped deeper into his fantasy world. He talked less to people and more to screens. He grew bolder with his online encounters. He began reaching out to vulnerable women, women in financial distress, women who were desperate, alone, or unaware. And in doing so, he created the perfect trap, one that offered safety and deliverance on the surface, but hid a predator in the shadows. This wasn't simply a story of a man in decline. It was a story of a man building a persona, a character more dangerous than anyone realized. And by the time someone saw behind the mask, it was already far too late. Brady Ostrike's descent from troubled loner to violent predator wasn't marked by a single turning point. It happened in fragments, one twisted decision after another, each one darker than the last. But if there was a moment where fantasy crossed fully into reality, it came in May of 2014, when a young woman answered his message on Craigslist. She was in a vulnerable position, financially struggling, looking for companionship, maybe a place to stay.
Well, the couple just needed money, a desperate plea for cash to pay for gas, as Brooke Slocum said that things were in a tight spot financially, but the conversation quickly spiraled into a transaction for Slocum's family says that it is not the whole story. They say that she was.
Brady responded within the hour. He offered her shelter, a ride, and something unspoken. What began as a flirty exchange took a disturbing turn when he arrived to pick her up. Before they even left her home, he asked if she wanted to climb into a suitcase. She laughed, thought it was a joke, something kinky maybe. She agreed, unsure of what was coming next. As they drove, Brady stopped the car. He opened the suitcase and sprayed something inside. She'd later say she didn't know what it was, only that she immediately felt groggy, drugged, disoriented. When she awoke, she was chained to the floor of Brady's basement. His fantasy had begun. He called her his, forced her to clean, cook, submit. She wore a metal collar locked to a bolt in the floor. This continued for nearly a month. She managed to escape once and found temporary refuge in a domestic violence shelter. But Brady wasn't finished. He met her for lunch, played the part of the remorseful ex-lover, promised change, promised safety, and she believed him. She went back. This time the chains returned. The abuse resumed. Only when he beat her so severely that she feared for her life did she run again, this time for good. She went to the police. She didn't press charges. But she told them something they couldn't shake. Brady's house was filled with children's toys, storybooks, sippy cups. Brady had no children. 2 weeks later, another message popped up on Craigslist. A young woman named Brooke Slocum was 8 months pregnant and desperate. She needed $50 by that afternoon, for gas, for medicine. Her post was pleading, raw. She signed off by saying she and her unborn daughter would be forever grateful. Brady saw the post 10 days later and responded using his alias, Mike's Hard. He claimed he was 25,
Now, 10 days later, Brady Ostrike replies under the name Mike's Hard, quote, "I can host. What are you thinking? I'm 25.
Said he could host, offered her $120 cash. But Brooke wasn't alone. Her boyfriend, Charles Oppenheer, was with her, and he had a plan. According to friends, Charles was controlling, dangerous. He wasn't just Brooke's partner, he was her trafficker. He helped post the Craigslist ads. He drove her to meetings. He took the money. She was 18, pregnant, exploited.
I'm a murderer. I'm looking to take somebody out. Let's go to Craigslist because there's desperate people on there.
Yeah.
Hey, come in. I'm thinking, okay, you're pregnant, so you can't stop me. And your husband is a drug addict, so I'm gonna kill him and kill you. I'm gonna get away with this.
Your intuition is actually pretty spot on because there were some reports claiming that they were doing this for compensation, and the dad, her father, the victim's father, said that he feared, his gut instinct was that this was a ring gone wrong.
Brady didn't seem to mind. In fact, it excited him. They agreed to meet late at night at Giesen Park, a secluded area with thick woods and no lights. Brady said it was safe. No cops. No one would see. Brooke was hesitant, but Charles pushed her forward. He wanted the money. Brady wanted something else. That night, all three met in the dark. By morning, Brooke and Charles were gone. Their families reported them missing, but it wasn't until a man called the police about a masked figure lurking in the park days later that the real investigation began. Officers found Charles' abandoned car. Inside were his ID, some clothes, and traces of blood. Not enough for answers, but enough for suspicion. Then the search deepened. On July 16th, 5 days after the couple vanished, Charles Oppenheer's headless body was found under a pile of sticks in the woods. He had been killed, then mutilated. His head was missing.
We do believe that it is suspicious in nature.
And she was composed before cameras when they found Charles Oppenheer's partial remains in Giesen Park.
We're very focused, and we can put all that stuff aside because we have a job to do. And in this case, it was, time was of the essence.
And Brooke, she was still missing. But her phone history told a story. Investigators found the messages from Mike's Hard, traced the emails, tracked the IP cross-referenced Facebook accounts. It all led back to one name, Brady Ostrike. By July 17th, police were parked outside Brady's house, waiting for a search warrant, watching, waiting. What they didn't know was that inside, Brooke Slocum was still alive. She had survived 5 days in hell, chained, beaten, drugged. Forced to smile for the camera in a twisted role-play scenario, Brady filmed himself. He made her recite lines like a hostage, told her it was a game, told her he was preparing for something bigger. She couldn't scream. Neighbors later said they thought they heard something, but no one called. No one came. And that night, as officers sat silently in their cruisers down the street, Brady walked out the front door, got in his car, and drove away. Fast. Too fast. The high-speed chase ended when Brady slammed into a highway barrier. When officers approached, they found him slumped behind the wheel, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. In the trunk of the car was a suitcase. Inside was Brooke Slocum's body, strangled, cold. Her unborn baby, Audie Lynn, was gone too. Brady had killed her just hours before the police surrounded his house. There would be no trial, no courtroom testimony, no cross-examinations, no sentencing. Brady Ostrike took that away the moment he put the gun to his head. And yet, the investigation did not end with his death. It only widened. What police found in his house wasn't just incriminating. It was cinematic in its horror. The home was something out of a nightmare. Walls lined with swords, firearms stashed in drawers, ropes, chains, leather restraints. Homemade videos showed Brady casually preparing his basement like a set piece, testing locks and cameras, narrating his plans like an enthusiastic craftsman showing off a new project. This wasn't spontaneous. It was planned, controlled, a fantasy brought to life. Detectives recovered hard drives, handwritten journals, maps. One map was particularly chilling, marked with pins, spread across several states. It was unclear whether these were travel stops from Brady's work as a lineman or something far more sinister. They called in the FBI. The forensic team went deep into his digital life. His browser history, deleted files, hidden folders. Investigators weren't just trying to piece together what happened to Brooke and Charles. They were trying to determine whether Brady had done this before. The signs were everywhere. The woman from May, the one who managed to escape twice, gave them a timeline and the bruises to match. Her testimony painted a man obsessed with domination and control. Police theorized that Brooke was not meant to be his final victim, just the next in line. His canceled flight to Las Vegas, scheduled just days after the murder, had been booked to meet another woman from a fetish website. She would later say she Googled him after he suddenly ghosted her and was met with news headlines about suitcases and severed heads. She never met him. She never had the chance to be his next prisoner. But in the absence of a trial, prosecutors had to build something else, a narrative. They needed to understand motive, intent, pathology. The community needed answers, and Brady couldn't provide them, so they turned to those who had known him. Former friends, ex-girlfriends, old co-workers. They were shocked. Most said he was odd, yes. Quiet, absolutely. But dangerous? Never. One of his exes described him as two different people. The man she knew and the man on the news weren't the same.
The former fiancé cried during the off-camera interview, saying, quote, "The guy I know and the guy who did this are two different people. Apparently in the last year, he made some bad choices."
The friends who spoke to him in his final days recalled cheerful phone calls, jokes about dinner plans, long conversations where he never hinted at the hell happening inside his home. That, detectives said, was the most frightening part. Brady wasn't unraveling in public. He was unspooling in silence. Every piece of evidence only deepened the sense that his crimes were not impulsive but ritualistic. Police discovered a printed document titled Contract. It laid out rules, punishments, and daily routines. There were lists of training objectives, check boxes, timelines. It was a blueprint for enslavement. The FBI determined that Brady had downloaded materials related to restraint techniques, human trafficking, and dark web interactions. It wasn't enough to suggest he had other victims, but it strongly indicated he intended to. Though he would never stand trial, the justice system pivoted toward preservation, understanding the warning signs, archiving the digital evidence, and issuing new caution to women involved in online dating or platforms like Craigslist. It wasn't about proving guilt anymore. It was about preventing the next Brady Ostrike. His crimes reignited debates about personal ads, digital anonymity, and the accessibility of vulnerable people online. Law enforcement agencies across the country cited the case in training seminars. Universities added it to their criminology case studies. And in Wyoming, Michigan, a small town once known for its safety and simplicity, people began locking their doors a little earlier and glancing twice at strangers in the grocery store. There was no trial, but there was judgment. From the media, the investigators, the town, and anyone who's ever scrolled past a Craigslist ad and wondered who might be lurking on the other side. Brady Ostrike's death left behind more than just a crime scene. It left behind a community trying to make sense of something senseless. In the days that followed, Wyoming, Michigan became a town under the microscope. National media descended, reporters walking the same quiet streets Brady had walked, neighbors peering from behind curtains at the whirlwind that had overtaken them. For many, the realization that a serial predator had lived among them unnoticed was harder to accept than the crime itself. The families of Brooke Slocum and Charles Oppenheer were shattered. Brooke's father, in a brief and heartbreaking interview, said at least they had closure, unlike the families of other missing women in the area who were left wondering.
I know my daughter. I know she was a beautiful, kind-hearted woman that would do anything just to please others, and ultimately I believe that's what led to her demise.
He was referring in part to Jessica Heeringa, another woman who had vanished nearby. For a time, investigators even considered whether Brady could be connected to her disappearance. The timing, the geography, the dark online habits, they all raised red flags. But ultimately, that thread led to a different killer and a separate tragedy. Still, the whispers lingered. Was Brooke really the only one? Was Charles truly his first male victim? Or had there been others? People who never made it home from a Craigslist ad or late-night message? Law enforcement kept digging. The FBI conducted forensic dives into Brady's travel history, matching dates and cities against unsolved cases. Every digital trace was followed, every pin on his basement map examined, but no concrete connections were made. Just speculation and the chilling certainty that he had planned to kill again. In the community, fear turned into conversation. People who had once dismissed internet safety warnings as overblown now clung to them like gospel. Schools held assemblies. Churches discussed human trafficking from the pulpit. Craigslist removed its personal section in 2018, a decision driven in part by public pressure and mounting stories of predators using anonymity as a weapon. For survivors like the woman who escaped Brady's grasp earlier that year, healing was slow. Her story became a rare case study, one that was horrifying not just for what she endured, but for how close she came to being forgotten. She was believed, yes, but not protected. Her warnings were noted but not acted upon, and that failure still echoes through the halls of law enforcement briefings today. The house where Brady lived was eventually sold, renovated, its past scrubbed clean. But neighbors say they still feel it, that invisible residue of evil. Some moved away, others installed security systems, and many simply never spoke of it again. For the true crime community, the case of Brady Ostrike became infamous, a grotesque example of hidden depravity and missed red flags. But unlike other cases, this one offered no satisfying arc, no trial, no confession, no motive that made it all click into place. It left more questions than answers. Why did Brady snap when he did? Why did he build that dungeon-like basement? Why was a man who appeared so unassuming capable of such inhuman brutality? We may never know. All we're left with is the wreckage. A young mother, a father-to-be, an unborn child, a town forever changed, and a killer who lived next door, smiled at neighbors, and quietly constructed a nightmare no one saw coming until it was too late. The story of Brady Ostrike is a chilling reminder that monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they smile, they wave, they blend in. His crimes weren't committed in isolation. They were enabled by silence, by anonymity, and by the illusion of safety. What we choose to ignore in others, those subtle signs of control, obsession, and violence, can have consequences we never imagined. This story isn't just about one man's descent into darkness. It's about what happens when no one is watching, and what might have been prevented if someone had. If this case moved you, if it made you think differently about online interactions, or open your eyes to the reality some people live every day, please don't let it end here. Like this video to support awareness for online safety. Share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe for more in-depth investigative storytelling that doesn't shy away from the dark truths hiding in plain sight. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and always trust your instincts.